Imagine a shadow so absolute that it swallows the very light of a billion stars, creating a perfect, terrifying illusion of an endless, empty void. These colossal, ink-black silhouettes are not barren wastelands at all, but are instead overflowing with the raw, freezing molecular materials required to build entirely new solar systems. Picture a majestic, slow-motion cosmic battleground, where the fierce, scorching winds of ancient dying suns crash endlessly against an unyielding protective wall of microscopic interstellar ice. Deep within these pitch-black sanctuaries, a profound and invisible alchemy is taking place in the absolute zero of the interstellar medium. Gravity is silently and patiently winning a war against the freezing gas, pulling matter together into ultra-dense cores to eventually ignite the next roaring generation of radiant stars. Surprisingly, these monumental and seemingly eternal structures are merely fleeting phantoms on the galactic timescale, destined to be entirely shredded and blown away by the very brilliant light they work so incredibly hard to protect and nurture. If we were to look closer at the sprawling spiral arms of the Milky Way, we would see that without this temporary freezing darkness, the entire universe would eventually run out of the fundamental power to create anything new. These dark nebulae are the ultimate quiet guardians of the future, holding the heavy, unploughed soil of the cosmos in a state of suspended animation before the inevitable spring bloom of nuclear fire. They represent the beautiful, necessary pause between the death of the old galaxy and the vibrant, glowing birth of the new. This quiet room around you is a safe, enclosed sanctuary of its own, far removed from the violent and beautiful cosmic storms raging trillions of miles away. As your heavy, tired limbs sink deeper into the soft support of the mattress, feel the gentle, comforting pull of the Earth's gravity anchoring you securely to this exact, peaceful present moment. You are entirely safe from the turbulent winds of the day, and these ancient, awe-inspiring wonders of the deep dark are yours to peacefully inherit as you finally drift into sleep. Let the steady, hypnotic rhythm of your own breathing guide your mind outward, floating effortlessly past the fragile edges of the atmosphere and into the profound, absolute silence of the open void. The long, demanding hours of the waking world are finally over, and the time has come to completely surrender your thoughts to the vast, comforting mysteries of the overarching night sky. We will begin our journey by travelling far from the familiar warmth of our local solar neighbourhood, where monumental structures loom quietly in the interstellar deep. Far from the familiar warmth of our local solar neighbourhood, monumental structures loom quietly in the interstellar deep. These majestic formations are not built of radiant plasma or burning gas, but are instead composed of incredibly dense concentrations of cosmic dust and cold molecular gas. They stand as silent, colossal sentinels stretching across the galactic plane, actively defying the pervasive illumination of the cosmos. When observed against the luminous backdrop of a densely populated starfield, these massive clouds act as an impenetrable physical barrier. The microscopic particles within their vast interiors are tightly packed enough to intercept and completely extinguish the brilliant light emanating from any celestial objects positioned directly behind them. This profound interaction creates the stark visual effect of black ink deliberately spilled across a glowing tapestry of stars. Our eyes search for light, but find only a profound shadow cast across the glittering expanse of the Milky Way. The resulting silhouette is a testament to the immense power of simple dust when gathered in astronomical quantities. Looking up at the night sky, human intuition naturally equates darkness with the absolute absence of substance. We are deeply conditioned to perceive the glowing pinpricks of starlight as physical objects, while the blackness between them merely represents the vast, empty vacuum of space. Dark nebulae violently disrupt this fundamental visual assumption by presenting the convincing illusion of a total void where reality dictates the exact opposite. These imposing cosmic silhouettes are actually overflowing with millions of solar masses of primeval matter, heavily condensed into frigid, swirling molecular clouds. What registers to the naked human eye as a desolate, completely empty patch of nothingness is, in truth, one of the most physically crowded and dynamic environments in the entire interstellar medium. The sheer density of the raw material gathered in these regions is precisely what creates this compelling facade of total emptiness. By perfectly hoarding all available visible light within their dense borders, these astronomical features successfully masquerade as bottomless hollow chasms. The universe masterfully hides its greatest accumulations of unrefined stellar mass in plain sight, safely cloaked beneath a profound veil of absolute impenetrable darkness. Generations of early stargazers were utterly captivated and profoundly perplexed by these jarring interruptions in the starry firmament. Without the benefit of modern telescopic instrumentation, pioneer astronomers observing the Milky Way could only rely on their unassisted vision and the prevailing philosophical concepts of their era. When mapping the dense stellar fields of the galactic equator, they routinely encountered sheer, unexplainable drop-offs, where the stars seemed to simply cease existing. Prominent historical figures in astronomy earnestly theorized that these sudden, dark patches were literal holes torn directly through the fabric of the heavens. They hypothesized that these black voids offered a terrifying glimpse into the infinite featureless abyss stretching endlessly beyond the boundaries of our known universe. The idea of a physical cloud composed of opaque dust floating in the vacuum of space was a concept far too radical for the early scientific mind to easily digest. It took centuries of careful observation and the eventual development of astrophotography to dispel the myth of these celestial puncture wounds. We now understand that these regions are not structural failures in the cosmic tapestry, but rather the heavy dark threads woven intimately throughout it. Navigating the complex visual depths of the cosmos frequently requires us to reconsider our understanding of transparency and obstruction. Peering directly into the heart of a dark nebula is strikingly akin to standing on a shoreline and looking into a dense, unyielding cosmic fog bank. Just as a thick terrestrial mist swallows the headlights of oncoming vehicles, the microscopic grains within the nebula efficiently absorb and scatter the incoming light from distant stellar engines. The outer edges of this cosmic fog are often wispy and poorly defined, creating a soft, ghostly transition zone between the brilliant starfield and the suffocating dark. As the observer's gaze attempts to penetrate deeper into the cloud's interior, the concentration of a light-blocking material increases exponentially, creating a wall of absolute opacity. No amount of optical magnification in the visible spectrum can pierce this heavy, interstellar shroud. The physical behavior of the dust entirely dictates what information is allowed to escape the region and reach our eagerly watching telescopes. It is a boundary of profound sensory deprivation, heavily guarding the secrets hidden within its coldest, most isolated depths. Despite their frozen appearance from our distant earthly vantage point, these massive shadows are anything but static monuments. The physical boundaries of a dark nebula are engaged in a remarkably slow, eternal dance, dictated by the relentless push and pull of cosmic forces. Over timescales spanning millions of years, the shape of the cloud constantly morphs and shifts in response to the intricate gravitational tides of the surrounding galaxy. Neighbouring star clusters exert a gentle but persistent tug on the outer filaments of the dust, slowly stretching the nebula into elongated, twisting cosmic ribbons. Simultaneously, the immense internal gravity of the cloud itself is perpetually attempting to pull the incredibly cold material inward toward its own dense centre. This epic, silent struggle between external gravitational forces and internal collapse ensures that the outer perimeter is always in a state of fluid, agonizingly slow transition. Ancient tendrils of dark matter are pulled away into the interstellar medium, while new streams of gas are occasionally swept up into the primary structure. The striking silhouettes we observe tonight are merely a single, fleeting snapshot of an ever-changing celestial sculpture. Many of the most famous structures scattered across the night sky are renowned for their brilliant, chaotic displays of colourful light. emission nebulae proudly announce their presence by using the intense ultraviolet radiation from nearby newborn stars to excite their own internal gases into a state of vibrant, neon-like fluorescence. Dark nebulae, however, exist in a completely different, much more subdued physical state, characterized by profound thermal and optical silence. These lightless regions completely lack the necessary internal energy sources to heat their constituent gas to the point of visible ignition. Without a massive hot star embedded within to energize the surrounding hydrogen, the cloud remains trapped in a deep, dark freeze. They are the quiet, unassuming counterpoints to the galaxy's most violently luminous celestial showcases. Instead of radiating energy outward, they act exclusively as cosmic sinks, passively absorbing whatever stray light happens to strike their frigid outer layers. Their distinct lack of intrinsic glow is precisely what makes them so difficult to study, yet so incredibly vital to the overall energy balance of the interstellar ecosystem. Geography plays a crucial and often underappreciated role in our ability to witness the universe's most dramatic visual contrasts. Observers located in the Earth's southern hemisphere are granted a uniquely spectacular vantage point for tracing the intricate anatomy of our home galaxy. From this advantageous southern perspective, the dense, glowing central bulge of the Milky Way rises high overhead, providing an intensely brilliant silvery backdrop. It is against this overwhelming wash of background starlight that the dark nebulae are most starkly and dramatically silhouetted. Anyone looking up on a clear moonless night in these latitudes can easily spot the massive, sprawling dark rivers physically winding their way through the luminous galactic core. These black patches stand out with startling clarity, completely interrupting the otherwise continuous shimmering band of our spiral arm. The rich concentration of both starlight and obscuring dust in this specific region of the sky creates a high-contrast masterpiece of natural astronomical art. It is a humbling visual reminder of the immense opaque structures quietly drifting through the space between the stars. Before the invention of complex optical sensors and deep space imaging techniques, humanity's relationship with the cosmos was defined purely by what the naked eye could decipher. When gazing upon the dense star clouds of the galactic plane, the sudden appearance of these obscuring dust lanes creates a deeply unsettling visual anomaly. To the unassisted human eye, they look exactly like missing puzzle pieces deliberately cut out of the glittering starry night. The abrupt transition from thousands of glowing pinpricks to a totally featureless black void tricks the brain into perceiving a physical absence rather than a hidden presence. This illusion is incredibly powerful, forcing the observer to mentally trace the jagged, irregular edges of the shadows to comprehend their massive scale. It feels as though a cosmic hand has reached down and cleanly erased a portion of the universe, leaving behind a stark, unpainted canvas. The sheer vastness of these dark patches challenges our intuitive understanding of the night sky as a uniform, star-filled dome. They are the profound, quiet pauses in the otherwise endless, deafening visual symphony of the Milky Way. Comprehending the true scale of these obscuring formations requires a complete abandonment of our standard earthly metrics. The sheer physical size of a single, sprawling dark cloud can easily span dozens, sometimes hundreds, of light years across the galactic plane. To put this immense vastness into perspective, a single light year represents the incredible distance that light travels in a full Earth year, equating to trillions of miles. A dark nebula measuring 50 light years across is large enough to comfortably swallow millions of solar systems identical to our own, without leaving a single visible trace. These gargantuan structures lazily stretch their inky tendrils across unimaginable cosmic gulfs, dwarfing entire clusters of mature stars. Navigating a spacecraft from one side of such a nebula to the other at the speed of light would take a human lifetime, surrounded entirely by an impenetrable, freezing black fog. Their colossal mass and breathtaking dimensions firmly establish them as some of the largest unified, cohesive physical structures currently existing within the interstellar medium. They are true cosmic leviathans, silently drifting through the dark ocean of the galaxy. The mechanics of this profound astronomical darkness are driven entirely by physics operating on an almost unfathomably small scale. As brilliant, energetic starlight from distant background suns attempts to travel through the galactic void, it eventually collides with the dense frontiers of a dark nebula. This light does not simply bounce off a solid wall, rather, it is subjected to a relentless gauntlet of microscopic interactions. The tiny, soot-like particles of carbon and silicate suspended within the cloud systematically intercept the incoming photons of visible light. Each microscopic grain either completely absorbs the light's energy, converting it into a minuscule amount of heat, or violently scatters it away from the observer's line of sight. This constant, chaotic pinball effect exponentially degrades the starlight as it struggles to penetrate deeper into the suffocating dust. By the time the light reaches the absolute center of the nebula, its visible intensity has been completely and utterly extinguished. The grand result of trillions of microscopic light-scattering events is the creation of a shadow so deep and absolute that it defines the very architecture of the night sky. To comprehend the architecture of the night sky, we must first dive into a shadow so deep that it completely redefines the very concept of physical emptiness. Yet, this profound, seemingly solid darkness is constructed from a material so incredibly sparse that it entirely defies our everyday terrestrial understanding of tangible, dense matter. To stand directly inside the core of this sprawling lightless void would not feel like being buried under heavy earth or submerged in a crushing, suffocating fluid. Instead, a theoretical traveller would feel as though they were floating completely unhindered through a vacuum far thinner and phenomenally purer than any artificially created in our most advanced laboratory vacuum chambers. The individual microscopic particles actively responsible for casting these colossal, galaxy-spanning shadows are separated by vast, aching expanses of pure, completely undisturbed interstellar nothingness. Because of this extreme, almost incomprehensible physical diffusion, the entire immense cloud is entirely intangible to the human touch, resembling an ethereal, ghostly phantom rather than a solid cosmic wall. It is an absolute, breathtaking masterpiece of natural atmospheric engineering, achieving maximum visual opacity while actively maintaining an internal environment that is almost completely devoid of actual interactive physical substance. Microscopic grains of heavy, highly complex chemical elements provide the literal absolute physical foundation for this grand, galaxy-spanning optical illusion of total nothingness. These vital, loosely scattered trace amounts of solid silicates and elemental carbon were violently forged in the superheated, agonizing dying breaths of ancient, long-extinct massive suns. Expelled outward by devastating, intensely powerful explosive shockwaves, they now drift aimlessly through the frigid dark as an incredibly fine, nearly imperceptible soot-like interstellar substance. They are the scattered, incredibly cold ashes of past stellar generations, quietly and patiently gathering over incomprehensible eons to form the ultimate, entirely impenetrable light-blocking curtain. Despite their incredibly violent and wildly fiery origins, these specific physical particles now exist in a state of profound, deep-chilled suspension, silently absorbing the ambient kinetic energy of the surrounding cosmos. Their extremely gritty, highly metallic physical composition makes them perfectly suited to intercept the intense electromagnetic radiation constantly bombarding them from every possible distant celestial angle. This deeply scattered dark ash acts as the fertile cosmic soil, slowly and methodically accumulating in the vast empty gulfs of deep space to eventually build the heavy, necessary foundations of entirely new worlds. Surprisingly, The grand universe relies entirely on these seemingly insignificant, scattered microscopic specks of cosmic soot to successfully conceal its most massive, sprawling congregations of newly forming celestial bodies. An entire thriving, unimaginably energetic metropolis of brilliant, fiercely burning massive suns can be perfectly hidden behind a surprisingly delicate, ethereal gossamer veil of this loosely scattered dust. It is a breathtaking, utterly mind-bending paradox of immense cosmic scale, where the absolute smallest physical components of the entire galaxy completely dictate the overall visual visibility of its absolute largest, most energetic inhabitants. The drifting dust effectively acts as an impenetrable, terribly heavy curtain, stubbornly refusing to yield even a single stray energetic photon from the raging nuclear furnaces burning furiously just behind it. As you settle comfortably deeper into your current resting posture, let the steady, reliable rhythm of your own breathing perfectly mirror the slow, suspended, ancient stillness of these massive hidden stellar nurseries. The completely delicate, entirely silent balance of physical power between microscopic floating ash and monumental stellar ignition creates a profound, truly invisible tension that permeates the entire structural volume of the dark cloud. If we were to look significantly closer, utilizing highly theoretical optical instruments entirely capable of peering deeply into the microscopic quantum realm, we would realize that each individual speck of obscuring dust is remarkably minuscule. These singular individual grains typically measure significantly smaller across their absolute widest point than a single, rapidly oscillating wavelength of standard visible optical light. Because of their incredibly diminutive, sub-microscopic physical size, they do not block incoming stellar illumination like a traditional thick, solid brick wall, successfully stopping a rapidly moving physical vehicle. Instead, they interact with passing high-energy radiant photons in highly specific, almost surgically precise quantum ways, actively bending and entirely capturing radiant energy based on strictly defined physical atomic rules. This profound, overwhelmingly massive size disparity beautifully allows the sparse, drifting dust to manipulate passing light waves with an astonishing, almost entirely unbelievable level of precision, effectively becoming a highly selective cosmic optical filter. The tiny suspended particles gracefully snare the rapidly incoming streaming radiation, instantly and entirely neutralizing its luminous optical power and converting it seamlessly into incredibly trace amounts of entirely harmless invisible thermal energy. Deep within the absolutely freezing, utterly pitch-black isolation of the massive cloud's central hidden interior, a highly delicate and continuously ongoing frosty physical transformation takes place on the jagged, irregular surface of every single drifting grain. Local ambient temperatures deep within these highly shielded regions are so unfathomably low that ambient floating gas molecules completely and instantly lose their kinetic energy and stick permanently upon any brief contact with the solid soot. A microscopically thin, shimmering, highly beautiful mantle of freshly frozen molecular water, highly toxic carbon monoxide, and deeply pungent ammonia ice slowly and deliberately accumulates over the patient passing of countless silent millennia. These icy, incredibly delicate and fragile coats dramatically transform the fundamentally barren carbon and silicate inner cores into highly complex, glistening microscopic molecular snowballs drifting aimlessly through the eternal freezing dark. The thick, continuously growing protective frost severely alters the entire physical aerodynamic and thermal profile of the microscopic grain, completely changing how it subsequently absorbs local heat and further dramatically padding its incredible ability to physically block the rapid passage of wandering starlight. It is a completely silent, totally endless, invisible cosmic winter, where microscopic, highly complex snowflakes made of highly exotic chemical compounds fall continually and gracefully through a near-perfect interstellar vacuum. This highly delicate, heavily enveloping, highly complex icy mantle serves a far greater astronomical and essential chemical purpose than simply adding inert, heavy physical bulk to the continuously drifting soot particles. It functions dynamically and perfectly as an intricate, highly active, profoundly microscopic chemical laboratory, continuously operating flawlessly in the incredibly harshest, most deeply frigid and profoundly hostile depths of deep space. As extremely rare, highly energetic stray cosmic rays occasionally manage to violently strike the highly fragile frozen surface, they instantly provide the exact, precise spark of kinetic energy strictly required to successfully trigger slow, deeply exotic chemical reactions. These incredibly energetic subatomic physical collisions forcefully compel completely simple, totally isolated elemental atoms frozen tightly in the ice to forcibly bond together, weaving them patiently and deliberately into much more complex, highly stable molecular structures. In the quiet, utterly undisturbed, absolute safety of this absolute dark, the vast universe begins to slowly, incredibly, deliberately assemble the very complex organic chemical building blocks absolutely necessary for future complex planetary atmospheric chemistry. The tiny floating dust grain effectively becomes a highly miniature, highly mobile chemical anvil where the fundamental raw ingredients of physical biological existence are continuously and methodically hammered together by the passing, completely invisible energetic radiation. Notice how your resting physical body feels completely and entirely comfortably anchored, safely and totally entirely separated from the incredibly turbulent, violently chaotic magnetic energies constantly swirling through these remarkably vast, deeply distant interstellar dark clouds. The specific, deeply microscopic physical geometric dimensions of these icy grains perfectly and entirely determine exactly how they will physically and rapidly react when finally struck by the broad, intensely powerful mixed spectrum of incoming starlight. When a cohesive, brilliant beam of mixed stellar radiation unexpectedly and abruptly encounters the deep dust, the significantly shorter, much higher energy optical wavelengths specifically corresponding to the vibrant color blue are violently and incredibly efficiently scattered away in all possible outward directions. The internal, highly concentrated dust effectively acts like a relentless, massively powerful optical prism operating completely and flawlessly in reverse, actively shattering the incoming blue light and completely dispersing it harmlessly into the surrounding empty interstellar void. This highly energetic blue light is completely, totally aggressively stripped from the original, unified, cohesive optical beam, permanently and forever lost to the surrounding vast emptiness long before it can ever possibly cross the vast, unimaginable gulf of space to eventually reach our distant planetary vantage point. The massive dark cloud effectively acts as a truly ruthless, highly selective cosmic bouncer, specifically and aggressively denying entry to the most energetic visual optical frequencies while selectively allowing completely different, lower energy others to pass entirely unhindered. Because of this intensely severe, highly selective and incredibly dramatic differential physical scattering, a truly fascinating and deeply beautiful optical illusion immediately and seamlessly occurs when we patiently observe background celestial bodies peeking through the thinner, highly wispy outer margins of the dark cloud. Stripped entirely and completely of their brilliant, highly energetic blue optical wave emissions, the surviving light from these distant stellar beacons finally reaches our specialized optical instruments in a severely altered, dramatically completely changed physical state. The remaining surviving traveling photons, primarily heavily consisting of significantly longer, vastly less energetic red optical wavelengths, easily and gracefully slip past the incredibly microscopic icy dust grains, completely and entirely physically unimpeded. To our highly sensitive optical tracking sensors, these massive, totally hidden stars appear heavily visually distorted and artificially, deeply reddened, glowing fiercely and ominously like slowly smouldering burning embers seen actively through an extremely thick, heavily choking terrestrial forest fire haze. This highly dramatic, truly beautiful cosmic optical colour shift directly and undeniably definitively betrays the specific, completely hidden massive presence and exact chemical, structural composition of the intervening invisible dust, allowing working scientists to brilliantly and accurately map the invisible shadow by the very precise light it fundamentally entirely fails to properly block. It is a deeply stunning, completely breathtaking visual optical compromise, where the truly vast nebula reluctantly allows remaining light to successfully escape only after entirely rewriting its intensely colourful visual chemical signature. While a strictly single, completely isolated microscopic grain of this frosted, intensely cold icy soot is entirely inconsequential entirely on its own, their incredibly collective, truly galaxy-spanning immense physical accumulation generates an almost totally incomprehensible, truly monumental gravitational physical presence. If we could somehow highly theoretically gather, perfectly structurally isolate, and intensely accurately weigh all the widely scattered, totally invisible dust suspended permanently within a single prominent dark cosmic cloud, the resulting physical figure would be truly scientifically staggering. Its total, incredibly immense, fully combined, massive physical weight would easily and extremely quickly directly equal thousands of times the immense, absolutely crushing gravitational weight of our own local, brightly and fiercely burning central star. This entirely monumental, deeply awe-inspiring accumulation of incredibly massive, highly complex heavy atomic elements perfectly provides the immense, profoundly powerful, gravitational anchor strictly and absolutely required to structurally hold the sprawling, highly ethereal structure completely and safely together. Without this incredibly massive, completely, totally hidden underlying physical weight, the intensely turbulent, violently, entirely boiling, kinetic, energetic, physical forces of surrounding hostile deep space would quickly and absolutely mercilessly physically tear the delicate cloud completely apart, scattering its precious gathered materials totally to the cosmic winds. The highly dense, completely freezing dust is the extremely heavy, totally entirely silent skeletal structure of the giant nebula, providing the strictly necessary internal architectural physical integrity to completely survive completely intact for millions of silently passing sequential years. As your totally relaxing muscles yield completely to gravity, reflect quietly on the absolute, totally uncompromising deep necessity of this incredibly profoundly dark, totally entirely undisturbed deep stillness for the highly delicate successful creation of completely entirely new, highly energetic, radiant celestial life. Ultimately, this profoundly vast, overwhelmingly completely massive obscuring, deep reservoir of totally freezing microscopic cosmic dust is the singular, absolutely crucially vital physical structural ingredient constantly and continually required for the continuous, ongoing biological physical continuation of the entire galactic evolutionary life cycle. Without the incredibly intensely dense, heavily, deeply protective, cooling dark shadow perfectly cast by these swirling trillions of completely microscopic, endlessly drifting icy grains, the intensely fragile, slowly gradually gathering raw structural materials desperately needed to eventually successfully ignite new suns would be instantly completely destroyed. The highly completely harsh, violently fiercely stripping ultraviolet high-energy radiation, violently emanating constantly from older, aggressively surrounding established brilliant stars would absolutely mercilessly instantly boil away the incredibly delicate gathering cold gas completely before it could ever properly successfully collapse inward. The highly majestic, entirely unimaginably completely violent, an incredibly raw, powerful physical process of actual deep stellar ignition can only entirely safely and physically properly occur when heavily, completely, totally shielded deep within the profoundly cold, deeply, extremely comforting, absolute dark embrace of this entirely primeval cosmic soot. The profoundly massive, completely lightless shadow is not a totally dead, completely empty cosmic wasteland, but a highly incredibly vital, heavily completely armoured protective chemical sanctuary, actively, deeply patiently, fully nurturing the truly next brilliant roaring generation of completely radiant cosmic celestial power. To actively nurture the truly next brilliant roaring generation of completely radiant cosmic celestial power, the universe meticulously constructs vast, sweeping canvases of profound and isolating shadow. Some of these highly specific, intensely massive protective cosmic silhouettes are so completely physically immense that they entirely visually dominate the glittering stellar view from our planet's extreme southern latitudes. Drifting silently and heavily near the iconic, brilliantly glowing diamond-shaped constellation that flawlessly guides nocturnal ocean navigators, an expansive, seemingly totally bottomless blotch of pure darkness aggressively interrupts the stellar band. This highly prominent, gaping physical cosmic feature is famously recognized by stargazers as the Coalsack, appearing to the completely unaided human eye as a massive, ragged puncture wound violently torn directly into the glowing fabric of the deep night. Because it effectively blocks the overwhelming, brilliantly luminous light pouring from the densely packed background stellar fields, it creates the chilling, entirely convincing visual illusion of a sheer, totally infinite black drop-off. For countless sequential human generations, its strikingly unmistakable dark presence has actively served as a fundamental, highly reliable celestial visual landmark. It beautifully and effectively proves that profound, total, absolute darkness can be just as visually defining and structurally significant as the absolute brightest, most fiercely burning cluster of gathered stellar bodies. Deep within the fiercely energetic, universally recognizable Hunter constellation that gracefully dominates our cold winter nights, an entirely different, incredibly specific visual shape dramatically emerges from a turbulent sea of glowing gas. Rising majestically and silently against a vibrant, deeply red curtain of illuminated hydrogen, a towering, thick pillar of completely opaque, freezing molecular dust perfectly mimics the familiar, elegant profile of a dark equestrian head. This incredibly iconic, universally beloved dark silhouette is actively and constantly being carved, sculpted, and physically eroded by the extremely harsh, blistering radiant ultraviolet light pouring continuously from a nearby massively brilliant star system. The invisible, highly powerful stellar winds act exactly like a fierce, totally relentless cosmic sandblaster, violently stripping away the softer, highly vulnerable outer gaseous layers of the dark cloud. What presently remains completely totally intact is the incredibly dense, entirely stubborn dark inner core, standing entirely resolute against the intensely luminous tide. It stands beautifully as a breathtaking, totally accidental masterpiece of cosmic erosion, representing a fleeting, highly recognizable monument of absolute darkness, stubbornly resisting its own inevitable, totally glorious luminous destruction. Allow your gently resting body to sink entirely deeper into its quiet, completely comfortable support, totally relaxing your muscles as we mentally trace the more winding, deeply complex shadowy paths etched across the celestial vault. Winding its way sinuously through the incredibly dense, highly heavily populated star fields of the Serpent-Bearer constellation, a distinct, entirely opaque ribbon of freezing dust visually slithers directly across the exceptionally bright background. This particular, completely highly unique formation does not simply gather into a singular, heavily shapeless dark blob, but instead twists and deeply contorts itself entirely into a long, striking serpentine curve. It perfectly and beautifully heavily resembles a massive, entirely ink-black serpent, completely, totally frozen in mid-strike, against the glittering, intensely heavily illuminated starry firmament. The incredibly sharp, completely well-defined outer edges of this deeply winding dark river dramatically highlight the intense, totally ongoing physical struggle between the expanding, glowing local gas and the stubbornly resilient molecular dust. It provides a stunning, highly hypnotic visual testament to the deeply complex, invisible, twisting local magnetic forces actively moulding the totally freezing, highly dense cosmic soot. Human cultural imagination has long powerfully utilized these sprawling, deeply highly complex shadows to carefully construct deeply meaningful traditional narratives and entirely unique ancient astronomical frameworks. Across the vast, ancient, sweeping landscapes of the southern terrestrial continents, traditional indigenous sky watchers fundamentally completely reverse the standard historical practice of simply connecting brightly glowing individual stars to creatively form their specific mythological figures. Instead, they masterfully and beautifully entirely link the deeply profound, sprawling patches of absolute darkness strung sequentially along the main bright galactic plane to creatively form the massive, totally unmistakable shape of a giant, completely flightless celestial bird. This sweeping, deeply magnificent, entirely cultural dark constellation stretches majestically entirely across the high zenith, completely dominating the local sky with its sheer, totally heavy obscuring bulk. Its prominent, totally entirely highly celebrated position serves as a deeply powerful, ancient human reminder that the profound, total visual absence of incoming light can culturally hold just as much deep significance as its brilliant glowing presence. By culturally fully embracing the deep, total shadowy voids, these ancient observers beautifully, actively, completely mapped the entire true, deeply complex duality of the surrounding deep cosmos. Not all major obscuring interstellar formations are thickly, totally heavily tangled within the deeply complex, highly chaotic, luminous central bands of the broader galactic equator. Some highly unique, completely heavily fascinating dark clouds exist completely as startlingly isolated, perfectly contained solitary islands of absolute, unyielding deep shadow, suspended entirely fully alone against a totally completely uniform, densely packed, glittering backdrop of distant, highly intensely glowing background suns. A remarkably highly compact, incredibly dense molecular cloud hangs totally quietly like a perfectly formed, completely, totally opaque drop of black ink. Because it is completely fundamentally devoid of any internal, warming newborn stars and entirely physically completely disconnected from any larger, more chaotic, obscuring structural complexes, it presents the terrifying, deeply convincing visual illusion of a sheer, completely, entirely bottomless, utterly featureless void. This particular, highly, deeply, entirely isolated pocket of extreme, totally uncompromising deep darkness provides observant working astronomers with a flawless, completely, totally, completely undisturbed, perfectly quiet laboratory. It is entirely flawlessly, deeply ideally suited for intensely, perfectly meticulously studying the highly delicate, perfectly completely quiet, initial, fragile stages of potential future gravitational collapse in a totally pure, undisturbed deep vacuum. As your steady, natural breathing continues to gently slow and steady itself, perfectly matching the patient, unhurried timescales of these massive interstellar structures, new geometric, shadowy shapes seamlessly emerge. Vast, incredibly thick intersecting lanes of densely packed freezing dust occasionally collide and forcefully merge to construct distinct, highly recognizable, remarkably rigid angular silhouettes. One such sprawling, immensely complex structural dark complex strongly and instantly visually resembles an antique, traditional long-stem smoking apparatus resting quietly against the brightly packed, intensely brilliant central core of our home galaxy. The highly distinct, completely opaque stem and the heavy, massively bulbous bowl of this immense dark structure vividly demonstrate complex structural cosmic forces at play. These seemingly deliberate, highly structured angular linear formations are carefully and gracefully forced into their specific unusual shapes by twisting powerful unseen local magnetic fields. They stand proudly as monumental dark physical monoliths, actively sculpted by the incredibly fierce, invisible energetic currents of deep space. Further along the intensely active, brightly glowing spiral arms, truly dramatic, towering physical monuments of sheer, unyielding dark dust aggressively push back against the intensely luminous tide. A massive, heavily condensed, incredibly dark conical pillar of tightly packed molecular gas fiercely points its sharply tapered, highly eroded peak directly toward a violently brilliant, newly formed nearby star cluster. The immense, intensely harsh ultraviolet radiation, relentlessly battering this dark, deeply frozen spire, acts exactly like a fierce celestial sandblaster, violently and systematically stripping away its softer, outer gaseous layers. What currently remains is the incredibly dense, entirely stubborn dark central core, a truly majestic, deeply shadowy physical monolith resisting rapid thermal evaporation. This sharply pointed, completely opaque celestial cone serves as a defiant, completely silent testament to the raw, enduring physical strength of gathered cosmic soot under intense duress. It is an awe-inspiring, entirely natural monument showcasing the incredibly violent, ongoing celestial battle between absolute freezing shadow and searing destructive light. For those scanning the vast, deeply glittering arch of the northern celestial vault, an entirely massive, visually overwhelming dark intervention radically restructures the entire night sky. A colossal, intensely sprawling, totally interconnected series of overlapping heavy dust clouds dramatically cleaves the intensely bright, continuous stellar band entirely into two completely separate, parallel luminous streams. This immense, heavily jagged dark canyon runs continuously for thousands of light years, effectively plunging a massively significant portion of the dense central galactic disk into a profound, permanent shadow. It acts as an incredibly thick, naturally occurring cosmic divider, physically totally separating completely entire sprawling neighbourhoods of brightly glowing, fiercely energetic starry realms. It is fundamentally the absolute largest, most visually dominant dark feature entirely visible from our local planetary system, totally redefining the overall majestic structural appearance of our surrounding cosmic home. The sheer, overwhelming scale of this colossal dark river beautifully puts the truly staggering, deeply incomprehensible physical vastness of these obscuring dust structures into proper, humbling perspective. Deeply embedded within the seemingly featureless, broad, dark veils of these sprawling, shadowy complexes, a frantic, highly prolific period of hidden creation is continuously unfolding. A particularly expansive, dense regional complex acts as a massive, tightly closed theatrical curtain, actively hiding the simultaneous violent birth of literally hundreds of brand new, fiercely burning suns. The incredibly thick, impenetrable, dusty outer shell ensures that this massively chaotic stellar nursery remains visually undetectable to any standard optical inspection from our distant vantage point. Only highly advanced, penetrating sensory equipment can successfully pierce this heavy, dark cosmic blanket to finally reveal the incredibly hot, energetic, clustered luminous swarm actively incubating within. This specific, sprawling, shadowy region serves as a highly active, incredibly fertile galactic incubator, utilizing its profound, freezing darkness to safely shelter an entire upcoming generation of cosmic light. It perfectly demonstrates that the deepest, most visually impenetrable cosmic shadows frequently hide the brightest, most profoundly violent celestial physical transformations. Feel the gentle, reliable weight of your own resting physical form, a profound, comforting anchor as we mentally travel to the very nearest fringes of these sprawling, massive cosmic shadows. Drifting surprisingly intimately close to our own highly familiar local planetary neighbourhood, an incredibly vast, profoundly dark molecular complex serves as the closest physically active star-forming laboratory currently known to modern science. Its close physical proximity wonderfully allows us an entirely unprecedented, highly detailed front row seat to meticulously observe the slow, agonizing process of cold dust collapsing into blazing light. This deeply familiar, intimately neighbouring shadow acts as a highly crucial, invaluable local cosmic keystone, actively helping dedicated working astronomers seamlessly translate the complex physical behaviours of much more distant, unreachable dark nebulae. It ultimately and beautifully proves that the profoundly terrifying dark voids of the vast expanding universe are absolutely not distant, isolated phenomena. Instead, these crucial, life-giving creative cosmic shadows are intimately, deeply, and beautifully woven right up against the safe, brilliantly illuminated borders of our very own local cosmic backyard. Deep within this local cosmic backyard, where the tapestry of the night is most intricately woven, lies a temperature reality that defies every possible human experience of the natural world. These immense dark structures are not merely places where light fails to reach, but are instead the absolute coldest known physical objects in the entire observable universe. To find anything approaching this level of profound thermal stillness, one would have to step far outside the natural laws of our galaxy and into a highly specialized, high-technology laboratory on our home world. While we often think of the void of space as a uniform realm of biting chill, these specific pockets represent the theoretical limit of temperature, pushing the very boundaries of physical possibility. Most regions of the interstellar medium hum with the distant, subtle vibrations of ambient starlight, maintaining a background warmth that supports a chaotic dance of particles. However, these specific dark enclaves have managed to strip away almost every trace of heat, existing in a state of nearly perfect, unmoving, and monumental stillness. They represent the ultimate silent triumph of shadow over the energetic, burning chaos that characterizes the rest of the surrounding stars. In these depths, the typical energetic agitation of the universe is replaced by a profound, heavy silence that is fundamentally tied to the lack of thermal motion. It is a realm where time itself seems to slow down, dictated by the absence of the heat that usually drives the frantic mechanical interactions of the cosmos. As we penetrate the heart of these massive structures, the thermal intensity plunges to a staggering 10 degrees above the point of absolute zero. At this profound level of chill, the very atoms that compose the gas clouds move with an agonizing, almost imperceptible slowness that is impossible to visualize. Every individual molecule is frozen into a state of deep, undisturbed hibernation, far removed from the violent, searing heat of the suns that populate the rest of the galaxy. Surprisingly, the universe maintains these pockets of extreme cold as a fundamental, non-negotiable necessity for its own long-term structural evolution. Without this nearly total absence of heat, the microscopic particles within the clouds would possess too much kinetic energy to remain together in a cohesive group. The energy would cause them to vibrate and bounce away from one another, preventing the formation of any larger structures. This bone-chilling stillness is the primary, absolute prerequisite for everything that is eventually born from the dark, cold depths of the nebula. It is a state of being where the universe pauses, gathering its breath in the freezing dark before attempting the violent transformation into light. This temperature is the baseline of creation, the silent floor upon which the entire drama of stellar life is eventually performed. This extreme, uncompromising cold is strictly required because even a small amount of residual heat would cause the delicate gas clouds to expand and eventually dissipate into the surrounding void. In the vast open vacuum of space, gas naturally wants to spread out and fill the surrounding emptiness, effectively thinning itself into a state of nothingness. The crushing silent chill of the nebula acts as a physical anchor, preventing the vital building materials of future worlds from drifting away into the interstellar abyss. If the internal temperature were to rise by even a few degrees, the resulting internal pressure would overcome the cloud's fragile internal cohesion. Like a long-held breath finally being released, the entire structure would swell outward and dissolve into the general featureless background of the interstellar medium. The icy stillness is thus the only thing keeping the massive silhouette from vanishing forever into the surrounding background starlight. By maintaining this deep freeze, the nebula ensures that its mass remains concentrated in a single, manageable volume of space. This density is the only way that gravity can eventually take hold and begin the long, slow work of building something new. The cold is a protective force, huddling the gas together against the scattering influence of the warmer, more energetic galaxy. In these frigid depths, a highly specific molecular mechanism works tirelessly to actively radiate away any lingering traces of dangerous thermal energy. Tiny, rotating molecules of carbon monoxide act as efficient cosmic cooling vents, shedding heat into the surrounding void in the form of invisible long-range radio waves. These molecules are perfectly tuned to the environment, spinning slowly in the dark and releasing the energy that would otherwise threaten to warm the cloud. It is a constant, silent process of thermal drainage that ensures the interior remains at its baseline of absolute, uncompromising frigidity. This molecular cooling is the active engine behind the nebula's passive appearance of frozen stability, working even in the total absence of light. Take a moment to notice the soft, rhythmic warmth of your own hands resting quietly against your lap, a stark and comforting contrast to the vacuum-sealed chill we are currently exploring. This contrast highlights the incredible specialty of these dark places, where the universe has designed a self-sustaining system to purge heat. Without these tiny molecular radiators, the clouds would eventually accumulate enough energy from cosmic rays to warm up and break apart. The carbon monoxide is the silent janitor of the nebula, constantly sweeping out the heat to keep the sanctuary cold and quiet. This freezing, lightless environment provides the only sanctuary in the entire galaxy where delicate chemical compounds can survive without being instantly destroyed by energetic stellar radiation. In the warmer, more illuminated regions of space, high-energy ultraviolet light acts like a chemical hammer, shattering complex bonds as soon as they are formed. Only behind the heavy cold walls of a dark nebula can these fragile molecular structures find the peace required to assemble and grow into more complex forms. If we were to look closer, we would see that the ice-coated dust grains act as tiny frozen cradles for the raw materials of life itself. The extreme chill prevents these chemicals from reacting too violently or evaporating before they have served their ultimate cosmic purpose in the formation of planets. This deep freeze preservation is the quiet laboratory where the universe tests its most complex and sensitive recipes for the building blocks of existence. The stillness here allows for a level of chemical complexity that is simply impossible anywhere else in the energetic cosmos. Molecules that would be ripped apart by the heat of a star or the pressure of a solar wind are here allowed to drift and combine in peace. It is a slow, cold alchemy that turns simple atoms into the complex precursors of biology and geology. The total lack of internal starlight within these regions is what ultimately preserves this deep, eternal freeze for millions of sequential years. Because the thick outer layers of dust act as a perfect, impenetrable filter, Not a single warming photon from the surrounding galaxy can penetrate to the core. This creates a state of permanent thermal isolation, where the interior of the cloud is completely disconnected from the heat of the wider universe. It is an environment of profound sensory deprivation, where the very concept of light has no physical meaning or presence for the matter contained within. This isolation allows the cold to settle and deepen, creating a pocket of space that is functionally invisible to the rest of the galaxy's thermal sensors. The shadow does not just block our view, it constructs a physical wall against the very energy that drives the rest of existence. Within this barrier, the temperature can remain stable for incredible stretches of time, unaffected by the birth or death of nearby stars. This long-term stability is what allows the cloud to prepare for its own eventual collapse, slowly gathering its strength in the dark. The silence of the starlight is the guardian of the cloud's freezing creative potential. Allow the natural heavy weight of your resting body to anchor you to the ground beneath you, sensing the steady pull of gravity that mirrors the massive forces currently at play in the deep dark. In these icy conditions, the incredibly weak outward thermal pressure finally loses its battle against the patient, relentless pull of internal gravity. Because the gas is so cold, it lacks the energetic outward push needed to resist being drawn toward the center of the cloud's massive weight. This represents a critical, defining turning point in the life of a nebula, where the balance shifts from expansion toward a slow, inevitable inward contraction. Gravity begins to win the tug-of-war that has lasted for countless eons, pulling every molecule and dust grain into a tighter, more cohesive unit. The profound chill has effectively removed the only obstacle preventing the cloud from collapsing under its own massive, silent weight. As the particles draw closer, the density increases, which in turn strengthens the gravitational pull, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of contraction. This process is only possible because the heat is being constantly drained away, preventing the gas from pushing back. The cold is thus the silent facilitator of gravity's ultimate triumph in the dark. The intense, unwavering chill effectively turns the entire sprawling cloud into a giant collapsing cosmic refrigerator, operating on a scale that dwarfs our entire solar system. As the material draws closer together, it would normally heat up due to the friction and pressure generated by the collapse. However, the efficient cooling mechanisms of the molecular gas continue to dump that excess heat into space, keeping the process controlled and slow. This unique refrigeration allows the cloud to become incredibly dense without becoming so hot that the star-forming process is prematurely aborted. It is a masterfully balanced machine of contraction and cooling, designed by the laws of physics to refine raw matter into concentrated seeds of light. The dark nebula is thus not a static block of ice, but a dynamic, self-cooling factory where the temperature is carefully managed by the laws of thermodynamics. This management ensures that the resulting stars are stable and well-formed, rather than chaotic and short-lived. The refrigeration process is a long-term investment by the galaxy, spending millions of years to prepare a single point of light. Each cooling cloud is a testament to the patient, methodical nature of cosmic construction. Surprisingly, the heat from the surrounding galaxy is heavily blocked by the dense, opaque outer layers of the dust cloud, which act as a massive thermal shield. The surrounding spiral arms are filled with the warmth of billions of suns and the high-energy residue of supernova explosions, all of which create a background heat that would easily dissipate a smaller cloud. These dark nebulae serve as armoured bunkers, protecting their fragile, cold interiors from the energetic noise of the entire galactic neighbourhood. The dust grains on the perimeter absorb this ambient galactic warmth, preventing it from ever reaching the sensitive, freezing core where the real work of creation happens. This thermal shielding is so effective that the temperature difference between the outside of the cloud and the inside can be truly staggering. It is a sanctuary of silence and stillness, perfectly insulated against the vibrant, burning busyness that defines the rest of the stellar disk. This shielding allows the internal chemistry to remain pure and the gravitational collapse to remain undisturbed by external shocks. The nebula is a world unto itself, a private pocket of the universe where the rules of the outside galaxy are temporarily suspended. In this protected space, the cold can reach its most profound and creative depths. As you drift further into a state of total physical relaxation, reflect on the fact that only in such profound cold can the gaseous seeds of future stars gather enough mass to eventually ignite. If the environment were any warmer, the building blocks of a star would simply fly apart before they could ever reach the critical density required for nuclear fusion. The deep, bone-chilling cold is the essential midwife of the entire stellar population, ensuring that new light is born with the correct weight. Without these freezing voids, the galaxy would eventually run out of the fuel needed to create new generations of suns, leading to a slow, permanent dimming of the night sky. Each dark nebula represents a reservoir of potential, a frozen storage unit where the universe keeps its most precious raw materials safe until the moment of their ultimate birth. The warmth of a star's nuclear fire is thus a direct gift from the most freezing, lightless depths of the cosmic abyss. It is the final paradox of astronomy that the most brilliant lights in the heavens owe their very existence to the coldest, darkest places in the void. By embracing the absolute zero of the nebula, the universe ensures that the fire of the stars will never truly go out. The cold is not the enemy of life, but its most patient and necessary protector. This necessary protector, the heavy shroud of the dark nebula, hides within its most secretive folds the first tangible evidence of a new stellar beginning. Deeply buried beneath layers of opaque soot and freezing gas are ultra-dense localized regions known as prestellar cores, where the matter of the universe has begun to cluster with an almost sentient focus. These are not yet stars, but they are the specific high-density points where the long, slow work of gravitational gathering has finally reached a critical threshold of concentration. To observe these regions from the outside is impossible with the naked eye, as they exist as pockets of even deeper shadow within the already pitch-black interior of the cloud. They represent the silent, hidden potential of the cosmos, standing as the physical evidence that the stillness of the nebula is actually a state of intense, focused preparation. Each core is a distinct, isolated laboratory of gravity, where the fundamental building blocks of future solar systems are being methodically organized into a single, cohesive unit of mass. These cores are the ultimate sanctuaries of the galaxy, existing in a state of purity and isolation that cannot be found anywhere else in the radiant spiral arms. Within their boundaries, the molecules of hydrogen and the grains of silicate dust are packed together with a density that begins to warp the local geometry of space and time. They are the quiet, unassuming seeds of the future, resting patiently in the cold dark before the inevitable transition into the blinding brilliance of a new sun. Deep within these isolated sanctuaries, the patient and eons-long struggle between the inward pull of gravity and the outward push of gas pressure finally reaches a definitive, world-changing resolution. For millions of years, the weak internal heat of the cloud has attempted to resist the crushing weight of its own mass, but in these specific cores, the battle is being decisively won by gravity. The profound, bone-chilling cold that permeates the structure has so thoroughly robbed the gas molecules of their kinetic energy that they can no longer maintain their outward resistance. This loss of thermal pressure allows the immense gravitational field of the cloud to finally assert its absolute dominance over the localized region. The material begins a slow, irreversible descent into its own center, falling with a majestic and unhurried grace that defines the true pace of cosmic time. It is a collapse that is conducted in total silence, hidden from the rest of the universe by the very dust that is now being drawn into the vortex. As the molecules draw closer, the gravitational pull only intensifies, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of contraction that will eventually result in the birth of a star. This is the precise moment where the darkness begins its transformation, moving away from a state of passive drift and toward a focused, energetic destiny. The victory of gravity in these cold depths is the essential spark that ensures the galaxy will never truly run out of light. As the massive structure of the core continues its inevitable collapse, it begins to spin with a rapidly increasing velocity to perfectly conserve its total angular momentum. This phenomenon is a direct result of the same physical laws that cause an ice skater to accelerate their rotation as they pull their limbs closer to their body. The vast, sluggish movement of the original gas cloud is transformed into a focused, rhythmic spin that begins to define the architectural shape of the future solar system. This rotation eventually flattens the surrounding material into a vast, thin disk, creating the foundational plane upon which planets will one day take their circular orbits. Notice the slow, steady rise and fall of your chest as you breathe, a rhythmic internal pulse that beautifully mirrors the grand rotational momentum now stirring in the heart of the deep dark. The spin is the pulse of the nebula, a sign that the inanimate gas is being organized into a dynamic and living system. Over time, this spinning motion becomes so powerful that it begins to influence the magnetic fields threading through the cloud, twisting them into complex and energetic shapes. This rotational energy is the primary engine of the star's early development, providing the mechanical force necessary to shed excess matter and concentrate the rest at the center. It is a majestic, invisible dance of physics that turns a shapeless cloud into a structured and spinning cradle of potential. Surprisingly, at the very center of this frantic and spinning vortex, the density of the gathered material eventually grows so extreme that the laws of the nebula begin to change. The friction between the falling atoms and the intense pressure of the collapse finally causes the temperature to rise, ending the era of absolute zero for this specific point in space. This glowing central heart eventually becomes a protostar, a primitive and hungry sun that has begun to flicker with the first hints of its future brilliance. It is not yet a true star capable of nuclear fusion, but it has already become an object of immense power and radiant heat. This embryonic sun is still actively growing, using its immense gravitational pull to draw in the remaining material from the surrounding disk. It is a brilliant, flickering flame ignited within the coldest and most lightless sanctuary of the galaxy, a spark of life born from the absolute stillness of the void. The protostar represents the first time that the darkness has been successfully pierced from within, creating a source of energy that is entirely independent of the surrounding universe. It is a monumental achievement of cosmic physics, proving that even the most profound shadow can eventually produce a beacon of light. The birth of this central heat marks the beginning of the end for the dark nursery, as the new star starts to exert its own influence on the environment. While the vast, sprawling exterior of the nebula remains locked in its state of absolute bone-chilling cold, the hidden interior core is now heating up to immense and searing temperatures. This creates a startling thermal paradox within the cloud, where a furnace of millions of degrees is perfectly insulated by a thick shell of nearly absolute zero. The dark nebula acts as the ultimate thermodynamic container, allowing these two physical extremes to coexist in intimate, impossible proximity. This insulation is so effective that the heat of the protostar is completely invisible to anyone looking at the nebula through a standard optical telescope. The freezing dust grains on the outer edges absorb all the infrared radiation from the core, re-emitting it so slowly that the cloud's external temperature remains undisturbed. It is a masterfully designed shield that ensures the surrounding galaxy is not prematurely warmed by the violent energy being generated within. This contrast between the freezing womb and the burning child is one of the most dramatic transitions in all of astrophysics. It demonstrates the incredible versatility of the dark cloud, which can serve both as a freezer for chemicals and a kiln for the creation of stars. The shadow is the only place in the universe capable of holding such contradictory states together in a single, unified structure. If we were to look closer at this hidden, glowing heart, we would witness the sudden and violent eruption of supersonic gas jets from the poles of the invisible baby star. These narrow, magnificent beams of matter are forced out by the intense pressure and twisting magnetic fields of the spinning protostar. They pierce through the thick, dark outer envelope of the nebula like luminous needles, travelling for trillions of miles into the surrounding interstellar space. These jets act as a relief valve for the growing sun, allowing it to shed excess angular momentum and gas that would otherwise prevent it from contracting further. As you feel the weight of your resting limbs settling comfortably into the ground, consider the immense focused power required to punch through the heavy, dark walls of the cosmic nursery. These eruptions are the first visible announcement to the wider galaxy that a new sun has successfully navigated the long journey through the darkness. The impact of these jets as they slam into the surrounding colder gas creates spectacular glowing structures known as Herbig-Haro objects. These are the bright, colourful scars of birth, marking the boundaries where the new star's energy is beginning to interact with the ancient material of the nebula. They are the heralds of light, moving with a speed and violence that contrasts sharply with the silent, patient history of the dark cloud. Throughout this entire violent and energetic transition, the embryonic stars remain completely shielded from our distant view by their thick natal dust cocoons. These heavy blankets of soot and ice are composed of the very same material that originally helped the cloud to collapse, now serving as a protective armour for the newborn sun. They absorb every single photon of visible light emitted by the protostar, ensuring that its early, unstable development is conducted in absolute privacy. This shielding is not merely a visual barrier, but a physical necessity that protects the fragile newborn from the disruptive forces of the external galaxy. High-energy radiation from nearby mature stars and the pressure of galactic winds are kept at bay by the dense walls of the cocoon. It is a state of total isolation that allows the star to gather its strength and stabilize its nuclear reactions without being disturbed by the chaos of the outside world. If these cocoons were to dissipate too early, the young star might be stripped of its remaining gas and dust, preventing it from ever reaching its full potential. The darkness is thus a faithful guardian, refusing to yield its secret until the light within is strong enough to survive on its own. The dust cocoon is the final, most intimate layer of the nebula's long-term commitment to the creation of light. Over millions of years, the stellar newborns will generate increasingly powerful stellar winds that begin to erode their dark nurseries from the inside out. This outward pressure is a direct result of the star's increasing radiation and magnetic activity, which pushes against the surrounding gas and dust with a relentless force. Eventually, these winds carve out vast, hollow caverns within the cloud, creating beautiful, illuminated bubbles that glow with the light of the new sun. This process represents the ultimate transition of the nebula, as the protective shadow is systematically dismantled by the very light it works so hard to nurture. The dust that once served as a shield is now pushed back into the interstellar void, where it will eventually travel to the edges of the galaxy to begin the cycle again. The nursery is not destroyed so much as it is outgrown, its purpose fulfilled once the star is capable of standing on its own. The clearing of the nebula is a slow and majestic unveiling, revealing the sparkling star cluster that has been hidden for eons. It is the final act of the drama, a moment of triumph where the darkness finally yields to the brilliance of the new solar generation. The once opaque cloud becomes a transparent glowing window into the heart of a newly born stellar neighbourhood. This realization brings us to a profound and humbling truth. Almost every single star that currently illuminates the night sky, including our own familiar sun, was originally born inside a similar dark cloud. We are, in a very literal sense, the distant and transformed descendants of the shadow, having emerged from a realm of absolute cold and stillness. The very atoms that make up our bodies and the world beneath our feet were once part of an opaque, freezing molecular core deep within a cosmic nursery. The history of our solar system is inextricably tied to the history of a dark nebula that existed billions of years before the first humans ever walked the Earth. Our sun's early life was spent hidden within a dust cocoon, protected from the harsh environment of the young Milky Way by a heavy blanket of interstellar soot. Feel the soft, reliable temperature of your own skin, a gentle warmth that was originally sparked within the most freezing and lightless depths of the cosmic abyss. Every time we look at the stars, we are looking at the survivors of the darkness, the successful graduates of the galaxy's most rigorous and patient educational system. The darkness is not a separate or distant part of the universe, but the fundamental origin story of everything we know and love. We are the light that the darkness worked so hard to protect and produce. The dark nebula, in its final analysis, functions as a vital and irreplaceable protective incubator for the galaxy's most vulnerable and young stars. It provides the necessary physical isolation and thermal stability required for the complex transition from a cold, shapeless gas cloud into a stable and radiant nuclear engine. Without these immense, shadowy structures, the light of the galaxy would eventually flicker and fade, as there would be no safe place for new stars to be born. They are the grand, silent wombs of the cosmos, ensuring that the light of the future is nurtured with the utmost care, patience, and precision. Every shadow we see in the night sky is a promise of future brilliance, a reservoir of potential that is waiting for the correct moment to ignite. The darkness is the silent partner in the creation of the universe, providing the canvas upon which the stars are eventually painted. As we conclude our journey through the stellar nursery, we see that the shadow is not the enemy of the light, but its most essential ally. It is the quiet, heavy foundation upon which the entire luminous history of the galaxy is built. The dark nebula is the eternal guardian of the stars, holding the future in its cold, dark embrace. This heavy foundation of the shadow allows the dark nebula to act as a remarkably safe haven for complex chemical reactions that simply could not exist anywhere else in the radiant galaxy. In the open, unprotected stretches of the interstellar medium, the environment is far too violent for fragile atomic structures to maintain their delicate integrity. High-velocity winds from massive stars and the constant bombardment of intense, ionizing radiation create a state of perpetual chaos that typically tears molecules apart as soon as they are formed. Only within the deep, lightless belly of the dark cloud is the kinetic energy of the universe lowered to a level that permits atoms to settle and bond with absolute precision. It is a realm of profound chemical peace, where the fundamental laws of attraction can operate without interference from the external turmoil of the burning Milky Way. Within this sanctuary, the matter of the cosmos undergoes a quiet transformation from simple, isolated elements into the sophisticated building blocks of a future world. Surprisingly, the total lack of internal starlight does not mean the nebula is a realm of absolute chemical dormancy or a frozen, unproductive wasteland. Occasional, high-energy cosmic rays manage to penetrate the dense layers of dust, providing the exact, surgically precise spark of energy needed to forge new molecular bonds in the cold. These subatomic travelers, accelerated to near-light speed by distant supernova explosions, act as the only source of ignition in a world that is otherwise frozen near the point of absolute zero. When a cosmic ray strikes a gas molecule, it triggers a brief, microscopic release of energy that allows neighbouring atoms to overcome their natural repulsion and fuse together in the dark. This subatomic thunder is the only sound in the deep silence, a series of invisible high-stakes collisions that drive the entire chemical evolution of the cloud. It is a slow and methodical alchemy, powered by the stray energy of the wider universe, ensuring that even in the deepest shadow, the work of construction never truly stops. Utilizing the power of modern radio astronomy and sensitive spectral analysis, scientists have confidently detected over 100 different types of molecules hiding within these cold, lightless corridors. These chemical signatures are not merely simple pairings of hydrogen, but include a vast and surprising library of complex multi-atom structures that define the limits of interstellar chemistry. From the simple rotations of carbon monoxide to the more intricate polyatomic vibrations of long-chain molecules, the inventory of the nebula is a testament to the sophistication of the dark. This invisible marketplace of matter serves as the primary reservoir of chemical diversity in the galaxy, holding a record of every atomic interaction that has occurred over the last several million years. Each discovery reinforces the idea that the shadow is a highly organized warehouse, cataloguing the very raw materials required to construct a physical and diverse universe. The radio waves emitted by these molecules allow us to map the invisible interior, revealing a bustling metropolis of chemical activity that remains completely hidden from visible light. Notice the effortless weight of your head resting against its support, mirroring the passive, floating grace of these molecular chains as they drift through the void. Simple organic compounds like formaldehyde and methanol easily form on the cold, jagged surfaces of individual icy dust grains throughout the nebula. These microscopic platforms provide a crucial solid substrate where wandering atoms can find purchase and begin the slow process of structural assembly. In the vast emptiness of the gas, atoms might never meet by chance, but the surface of a dust grain acts as a natural meeting ground for chemical potential. The icy mantles act like a sticky molecular glue, trapping hydrogen and carbon and forcing them into the specific geometric configurations of organic chemistry. This surface-based labour is the primary reason the nebula can produce such a high volume of complex matter in such a low-density environment. It turns the entire cloud into a collection of trillions of tiny self-contained workshops, each one contributing to the overall chemical wealth of the region. If we were to look significantly closer at these microscopic grains, we would find that water molecules are being synthesized in massive, truly ocean-sized quantities long before a single planet ever takes shape. These colossal reservoirs of hydration are not gathered into a single pool, but are distributed as a fine, crystalline frost across trillions of miles of freezing space. The total volume of water contained within a single dark nebula would be sufficient to fill the basins of every world in the entire galaxy millions of times over. This is the true origin of the liquid that eventually carves canyons and supports life, manufactured in the absolute dark by the slow-motion collision of oxygen and hydrogen atoms. These molecules gather on the dust grains, building up thick layers of ice that represent the primary moisture source for the future solar system. The clouds are effectively the primary hydration centers of the cosmos, holding the moisture of the future in a state of frozen interstellar suspension. Every drop of water we will ever know began its life as this silent microscopic frost drifting in a lightless abyss. This surrounding impenetrable darkness is the only thing that prevents these incredibly fragile chemical bonds from being instantly shattered by the harsh, relentless ultraviolet starlight of the surrounding galaxy. High-energy radiation acts as a molecular guillotine, cutting through atomic bonds and reducing complex matter back to its simplest, most chaotic and unproductive form. Only the heavy opaque walls of the dark nebula can provide a high enough level of optical insulation to allow these delicate structures to reach a state of stability and growth. It is a boundary of profound physical safety, where the delicate architecture of the future is guarded against the energetic violence of the radiant present. Within this shield, molecules can grow to lengths that would be physically impossible in the light, forming the complex skeletons of organic compounds. This optical barrier creates a pocket of the universe where the rules of light are suspended, replaced by the quiet, steady rules of molecular assembly. The shadow is not a wall of death, but a protective skin for the burgeoning chemistry of life. When a newly born star finally begins to ignite and warm the surrounding cloud, these carefully constructed complex molecules undergo a sudden and dramatic transformation. As the temperature rises above the specific freezing point of the icy mantles, the molecules evaporate back into the gas phase in a process of massive cloud-wide cosmic sublimation. This release acts as a sudden, massive injection of organic material into the burgeoning solar system, providing the young planets with a ready-made and highly sophisticated atmospheric library. The work of millions of years is suddenly released into the environment, turning the once dark nursery into a vibrant, chemically rich laboratory of planetary development and geological formation. The gas becomes enriched with alcohols, sugars, and acids that were once locked away in the ice, creating a fertile environment for the next stage of cosmic evolution. This chemical unveiling is the first breath of a new solar system, a moment where the secrets of the shadow are shared with the light. The frozen laboratory finally opens its doors, pouring its treasures into the path of the orbiting planets. These dark chemical factories consistently and methodically produce the exact organic building blocks necessary for the eventual emergence of biological life across the entire galaxy. Prebiotic molecules such as amino acids and simple sugars are common products of the slow-motion alchemy occurring within the dust grains and the shielded gas lanes. The nebula does not merely provide the raw mass for a planet, it provides the highly specific, highly organized kit of parts required for chemistry to successfully become biology. This consistency suggests that the recipe for life is a universal standard, manufactured in bulk in every dark corner of the Milky Way before the stars even shine. The shadow is thus the primary source of the galaxy's vital potential, ensuring that the seeds of life are scattered as widely and as frequently as the dust itself. It is a cosmic delivery system that stocks every new world with the same fundamental ingredients for existence, regardless of where that world is born. By the time a planet is cool enough to support water, the chemistry for life has already been waiting in its atmosphere for millions of years. Our own familiar solar system undoubtedly inherited its initial complex chemical inventory from just such a primeval dark nebula billions of years ago. The very water that fills our oceans and the carbon that resides in our DNA were first assembled in the lightless, freezing stillness of a long-vanished cosmic cloud. We are not separate from the darkness, but are instead the direct material heirs of the molecular work conducted in the deep freeze of the ancient interstellar medium. The history of our biology began long before the Earth was formed, during a time when the sun was nothing more than a flickering light in a thick, dusty cocoon. Every breath we take is a physical continuation of a chemical process that was initiated in the silent, dark embrace of the ancient heavens. As your body settles into its final state of total stillness, realize that every atom within you is a traveller from those ancient, icy nurseries, finally at rest after a journey of unimaginable distance and time. We carry the shadow within our very cells, a silent testament to the creative power of the dark. This creative power of the dark is not a chaotic or undirected force, but is instead guided by a silent conductor that remains entirely invisible to our physical eyes. Deep within the sprawling, lightless volumes of the nebula, immense magnetic fields intimately thread their way through the massive expanse, weaving a web of force that defines the cloud's internal architecture. These fields are not modern inventions or local anomalies, but are ancient primordial lines of energy that have existed since the very earliest eras of the galaxy's formation. These fields permeate the cold gas and the frosted dust grains alike, creating an invisible, interconnected nervous system that allows the distant edges of the nebula to communicate their physical states across light years of empty space. Every atom within the cloud is subject to this overarching influence, moving in accordance with the grand magnetic design that spans the entire volume of the nebula. The field acts as a silent, steadfast guardian of the dark, providing a sense of order and direction to the otherwise shapeless and drifting molecular material. They act as the primary structural framework, ensuring that the cloud maintains its integrity against the many external pressures of the surrounding galactic disk. As the nebula drifts through the interstellar medium, these magnetic threads provide the necessary tension to prevent the structure from dissipating into a featureless fog. This invisible magnetism is the true master of the shadow, a subtle and persistent influence that directs the flow of cosmic evolution with a gentle but uncompromising hand. This unseen network ensures that the darkness is not just a void, but a highly structured environment where the laws of physics are strictly enforced by the pull of the field. It creates a state of internal cohesion that allows the nebula to act as a single, unified entity rather than a collection of random particles. By threading through the gas, the magnetic lines of force provide a sense of cosmic continuity that bridges the gap between individual atoms and the massive scale of the cloud itself. This structural web is the foundational layer upon which all subsequent stellar developments are built, providing the stability required for the next stages of life. Without this invisible scaffolding, the nebula would lack the internal strength to persist through the violent transitions of the interstellar environment. It is the silent architect of the darkness, a force that holds the shadow together with a grip that is as firm as it is ethereal. These underlying fields provide a crucial and absolutely non-negotiable structural support against the crushing, relentless inward force of gravity that seeks to compress the cloud into nothingness. Gravity is the eternal glutton of the cosmos, a force that is never satisfied and constantly works to pull every atom and grain of dust toward the center of mass. Without the stabilizing tension of the magnetic field, the massive weight of the nebula would overcome its internal pressure almost instantly, leading to a violent and premature collapse. Gravity works with a single-minded intensity, drawing material inward and increasing the density until the internal pressure becomes high enough to resist further contraction. However, the magnetic field provides a secondary, more resilient layer of defense that acts independently of the gas temperature or the movement of the dust. It creates a magnetic pressure that pushes outward, effectively propping up the vast volumes of cold gas and preventing them from surrendering to the gravitational abyss. The magnetic lines of force act like a firm, resilient scaffolding made of lightless energy, maintaining the cloud's volume even in the face of immense gravitational weight. This resistance creates a state of suspended animation, a long-term stability that allows the nebula to persist for millions of years as a cohesive and recognizable structure. It is this specific, tense balance that provides the time required for the intricate chemical labs we explored to conduct their slow-motion alchemy in peace. Without this magnetic support, the life cycle of the galaxy would be drastically altered, as the nurseries of stars would fail before they could ever fulfill their purpose. The magnetic field is the invisible architect of the nebula's longevity, holding back the tide of collapse until the conditions for a new star are finally and perfectly met. It acts as the primary counterweight to the cloud's own weight, creating a structural tension that defines the limits of how dense the material can become. In the absence of this support, the formation of new worlds would be a much more chaotic and precarious affair, lacking the structural foundations for stable development. The magnetic scaffolding is the unsung hero of the stellar nursery, providing the strength required to endure the long wait for the arrival of light. It ensures that the darkness remains a fertile ground for creation, holding the mass of the future in a steady and secure embrace. Deep within the lightless corridors of the dark cloud, the sparsely charged particles found within the dust are forced to spiral tightly along these magnetic lines of force in a display of perfect cosmic obedience. Every individual ion and electron, no matter how small or isolated, feels the undeniable pull of the magnetic web and is constrained to follow its geometric paths. This motion prevents the matter from moving in random, chaotic directions, effectively funneling the gas into specific, organized streams that flow along the magnetic contours. It is a mesmerizing, microscopic choreography conducted on a truly gargantuan scale, turning the interior of the nebula into a place of structured and predictable motion. As the particles spin in their tight rhythmic orbits, they generate their own subtle electromagnetic signatures, further reinforcing the strength and presence of the overall magnetic field. This spiraling motion acts as a secondary layer of protection, ensuring that the material of the nebula remains concentrated and focused rather than dissipating into the surrounding interstellar void. Notice the slow, effortless rhythm of your own pulse, a steady internal flow that mirrors this ancient and reliable movement of matter through the lightless cosmic veins. This alignment of matter and field is the fundamental reason why the dark nebula, can maintain such incredible densities without becoming a site of total energetic chaos. The magnetic field provides the rails upon which the gas must travel, ensuring that the journey towards star formation is conducted with absolute mathematical precision. This organised movement of particles also plays a vital role in the overall thermal management of the cloud, as the spiralling motion helps to distribute kinetic energy throughout the gas. By constraining the movement of the ions, the magnetic field prevents the formation of high-velocity shocks that could disrupt the delicate chemical balance. It is a state of controlled motion that mimics the calm, steady flow of a river, ensuring that the internal environment remains hospitable for the development of complex molecules. The spiraling choreography is a constant and quiet activity that continues even in the most absolute darkness of the nebula's core. It represents the active, living nature of the cloud, a sign that the inanimate dust is being organised and directed by a higher physical law. Every spinning particle is a small but essential part of the grand magnetic design, contributing to the overall stability and creative potential of the dark sanctuary. Because of this immense and pervasive magnetic tension, the eventual and inevitable collapse of the cloud into new star systems is significantly slowed down, allowing for a much more patient and controlled creative process. In a universe where gravity often demands immediate and violent resolution, the magnetic field acts as a gentle but firm brake, extending the timeline of stellar birth over countless millennia. This delay is of vital importance to the overall health and diversity of the galaxy, as it prevents the raw materials from falling into the centre too quickly and becoming prematurely hot and unstable. The magnetic tension ensures that the nebula has sufficient time to refine its chemical inventory and organise its internal density, leading to the creation of more stable and long-lived solar systems. Without this magnetic slowing, the star formation process would be a frantic and inefficient affair, likely resulting in a higher rate of failed births and chaotic planetary arrangements. The magnetism provides the universe with a sense of deliberate, thoughtful pace, turning what could be an explosion into a long-term, meticulously planned development. It is the silent, patient partner of gravity, ensuring that when the light finally arrives, it is a steady and enduring flame rather than a fleeting, violent flash. This temporal stretching allows for the formation of planets and the development of the complex molecular chemistry we carry within our own cells today. The slow collapse is a gift of time, a magnetic legacy that ensures the survival and stability of the future suns that will one day clear the darkness. By extending the creative process, the magnetic field allows for a much higher level of chemical and structural complexity to develop within the heart of the nebula. It provides the necessary window for the slow-motion collision of molecules and the growth of icy mantles that characterize the prestellar state. This patience is a fundamental characteristic of the dark nebula, a trait that is physically hardwired into the structure by the presence of the magnetic field. The slow-motion birth of a star is a majestic and unhurried event, a testament to the fact that the universe values stability and longevity over speed. Every extra 1,000 years provided by the magnetic break is an opportunity for a more perfectly formed and well-balanced solar system to emerge. The magnetic field is the guardian of this temporal sanctuary, ensuring that the creative work of the cosmos is never rushed or compromised. Surprisingly, the universe has left a subtle and beautiful clue for us to find, as the polarization of background starlight perfectly allows astronomers to map these hidden magnetic structures from our distant planetary home. As the light from thousands of far-off suns passes through the dense, obscuring layers of the nebula, it encounters the microscopic dust grains that have been perfectly aligned by the local magnetic field. These dust grains act as tiny, elongated cosmic filters, allowing only light waves that are vibrating in a specific direction to pass through unhindered. By carefully measuring the angle and intensity of this polarized light, dedicated researchers can effectively see the invisible skeleton of the cloud, tracing the winding paths of the magnetic field lines as they thread through the dark. It is a triumph of scientific observation, turning the very dust that blocks our visible view into a sophisticated lens that reveals the cloud's internal secrets. This mapping shows us that the magnetic fields are not simple or uniform, but are instead complex, twisted, and deeply intertwined with the material of the nebula itself. The ability to map these fields allows us to observe the hidden struggle between the different forces that shape the interstellar medium. We can see where the magnetic tension is strongest, holding back the weight of the gas, and where it has begun to twist under the influence of internal turbulence. It provides a level of detail that is simply impossible with visible light alone, opening a new window into the physical reality of the dark nebula. This spectral map is a guide to the future, showing us the exact locations where new stars are likely to form and how the nebula will eventually dissolve. It reveals the invisible connections between the different parts of the cloud, showing us a unified and harmonious structure that exists beyond the reach of our eyes. The polarization of starlight is a cosmic secret revealed, a way to witness the invisible architecture that holds the universe together. The overall shape and the striking silhouette of a dark nebula are frequently stretched and elongated by the presence of this internal, invisible magnetic skeleton. Instead of collapsing into simple, featureless spheres, many of these massive clouds appear in our telescopes as long, thin filaments or winding cosmic rivers that span hundreds of light years. This elongated morphology is a direct result of the matter being literally pulled and held in place by the magnetic lines of force, creating a structure that mirrors the field's own underlying geometry. The nebula effectively grows along the path of least resistance, following the magnetic threads as they stretch through the interstellar medium like strands of a vast, lightless spiderweb. This creates a highly complex and varied landscape of shadows, where the shape of the dark cloud tells the story of the magnetic tensions that have been acting upon it for millions of years. When we gaze upon a filamentary dark nebula, we are looking at a physical map of the invisible currents that flow through the galaxy, a frozen record of a magnetic struggle. The silhouette is a visual manifestation of a force we cannot touch or see, providing a beautiful and haunting shape to the cold, silent depths of the interstellar void. These filaments act as the grand structural beams of the galaxy, connecting different star-forming regions into a single, cohesive network of matter and energy. The shape of the dark is a direct reflection of the invisible power that holds the entire system in its steady, magnetic grip. This stretching also has a profound impact on how the nebula interacts with its surrounding environment, as the elongated shape provides a larger surface area for external forces to act upon. It allows the cloud to capture more passing gas and dust, further increasing its mass and its potential for future star formation. The magnetic skeleton is not just a passive support, but an active participant in the growth and evolution of the nebula itself. The variety of shapes seen in the dark nebula population is a sign of the incredible complexity of the magnetic fields that thread through the interstellar medium. From simple, straight filaments to complex, winding spirals, each shape tells a unique story of the local magnetic environment. It is a visual language of force and form, a way for the universe to express its internal structural laws through the medium of shadow and dust. If we were to look closer at the densest regions where new life is beginning to stir, we would witness a process called magnetic braking that slowly strips away the rapid, chaotic spin of collapsing cores. As a prestellar core shrinks under the weight of gravity, the law of conservation of angular momentum naturally causes it to rotate faster and faster, potentially reaching speeds that would tear the fledgling system apart. However, the magnetic field lines that thread through the core are also connected to the much larger, slower-moving outer layers of the surrounding nebula. These lines act like invisible, elastic tethers, exerting a dragging force that transfers the core's frantic rotational energy outward into the rest of the cloud. This magnetic friction effectively slows the core's spin, allowing it to continue its collapse in a stable and controlled manner until it reaches the incredible densities required for ignition. Without this magnetic braking, the vast majority of protostars would be unable to shed their excess energy, remaining as puffed up, rapidly spinning disks that never achieve the focus needed to become true suns. The magnetic field is the cosmic anchor that keeps the center from spinning out of control, ensuring a steady path toward a radiant and stable future. This process is a critical checkpoint in the life of a star, a moment where the invisible web ensures the stability of the future solar system. It is a silent and efficient mechanism that converts the chaos of the collapse into the organized, steady rotation of a mature and burning sun. The braking process also helps to organize the surrounding material into a vast flat disk that will eventually become the birthplace of planets. By slowing down the central core, the magnetic field allows the material to settle into a stable orbit rather than being thrown out by centrifugal force. It is the first step in the creation of a structured solar system, providing the mechanical order required for the formation of worlds. This magnetic tether is an essential part of the star-forming process, acting as a bridge between the small-scale collapse of the core and the large-scale structure of the nebula. It ensures that the energy of the collapse is safely managed and redistributed, allowing the universe to build stable and long-lived suns. The magnetic anchor is a sign of the universe's commitment to order, a force that turns the frantic energy of birth into the steady rhythm of a star's life. Without these vital magnetic fields acting as a constant cosmic stabilizer, a dark nebula would collapse far too quickly and create only a handful of extremely massive short-lived stars. The presence of magnetism ensures a much more diverse and abundant population of suns by preventing the entire mass of the cloud from rushing into a single, overwhelming gravitational center. Instead, the magnetic tension helps to fragment the nebula into many smaller, manageable pockets, each of which can eventually develop into its own independent and unique solar system. This process is the primary reason why our galactic disk is filled with a vast array of star types, including smaller, stable, and long-lived suns like our own that provide the steady warmth required for planetary life. The magnetic field is the invisible hand that distributes the cosmic wealth, ensuring that the raw materials of the nebula are shared across thousands of potential star systems rather than being hoarded by a few massive giants. It is the architect of stellar diversity, promoting a sustainable and varied ecosystem that can persist and evolve over billions of years. By slowing the pace and dividing the mass, magnetism ensures that the light of the galaxy remains a complex and beautifully multifaceted tapestry rather than a simple, blinding glare. This diversity is the foundation of the universe's complexity, allowing for the formation of billions of unique worlds with their own independent histories. The shadow's magnetic legacy is thus felt in every corner of the galactic disk, a silent influence that ensures the longevity and variety of the stellar population. The fragmentation of the cloud is a critical part of the galaxy's long-term health, as it ensures a continuous supply of new stars to replace those that have reached the end of their lives. It prevents the rapid exhaustion of the nebula's gas and dust, allowing the star formation process to continue for much longer periods of time. The magnetic field is the guardian of this generational cycle, providing the structural stability required for the continuous renewal of the stellar population. Every small star that we see in the night sky is a testament to the success of this magnetic distribution, a sign that the cloud's material was shared and managed with incredible precision. It is a victory of organization over chaos, a process that ensures the universe remains a vibrant and diverse place for billions of years to come. The invisible architect of the darkness is the primary reason why the night sky is filled with such a rich and varied collection of lights. The intricate and delicate cosmic balance between the inward pull of gravity, the outward push of internal turbulence, and the stabilizing tension of magnetism is what ultimately governs the entire lifespan of the cloud. This three-way physical struggle creates the long periods of profound stillness and thermal isolation required for the nebula to mature and develop its internal molecular complexity. If any one of these forces were to significantly weaken or disappear, the nebula would either dissipate into a featureless fog or vanish into a violent gravitational collapse, ending its creative potential prematurely. It is a masterfully balanced act of interstellar physics, conducted on a scale so vast that it defines the very evolution of the galactic spiral arms. As you continue to breathe in a slow and rhythmic manner, feel the steady, reliable support of the environment around you, a grounding sensation that mirrors the structural integrity these magnetic fields provide to the vast, airy volumes of the deep dark. This balance ensures that the dark nebula is not a place of chaos, but is instead a highly regulated and stable nursery where the laws of the universe work in perfect harmony. The shadow is a testament to this invisible coordination, a quiet sanctuary held together by the precise and patient interplay of the galaxy's most fundamental forces. Every dark patch in the sky is a site where this balance is currently being maintained, a place where gravity's hunger is held in check by the magnetic web and the turbulent motions of the gas. It is a state of dynamic equilibrium that preserves the potential of the cosmos for the millions of years required to bring new light into the world. This balance also allows the nebula to act as a buffer between the violent events of the outside galaxy and the sensitive chemistry of the interior. It absorbs the shock waves of supernova explosions and the pressure of stellar winds, converting their energy into internal turbulence that further stabilizes the structure. The dark nebula is a resilient and adaptable entity, capable of maintaining its integrity even in the most hostile environments. The three-way struggle is the primary engine of the nebula's life, providing the energy and the tension required for the creative work to continue. It is a sign of the universe's underlying complexity, a proof that the simplest of structures are actually the product of a highly sophisticated physical coordination. The shadow is the stage where this grand drama of balance is performed, a place of silent and eternal coordination. As the star-forming process reaches its climax, the twisting and tightly wound magnetic field lines eventually gain such incredible power that they can launch the spectacular, supersonic jets seen emerging from the poles of hidden protostars. These magnetic field lines become compressed and distorted by the spinning disk of matter, acting like a giant cosmic spring that is wound tighter and tighter with every rotation. When the tension finally reaches a breaking point, the field lines snap and reorganize, shooting streams of ionized gas and dust out at impossible speeds that can span trillions of miles. These magnetic cannons are the final, grand demonstration of the field's influence, using the very force that once held the cloud together to clear a path for the new star's radiation to finally escape. The jets act as a relief valve, carrying away excess energy and matter that would otherwise prevent the protostar from reaching its final radiant form. It is a violent and magnificent announcement to the rest of the galaxy that a new sun has successfully navigated the long, dark journey through the nebula's heart. The magnetism that once guarded the silence now powers the roar of birth, proving that the invisible threads are the true masters of both the shadow and the light. These jets carve vast caverns out of the surrounding dust, creating the glowing, illuminated boundaries that mark the end of the nebula's long, dark reign. It is a spectacular and final transformation, where the invisible architect of the darkness reveals itself as the primary engine of the new, radiant dawn. The jets also play a vital role in the overall enrichment of the interstellar medium as they carry the complex chemicals forged in the dark out into the surrounding galaxy. They act as a cosmic irrigation system, spreading the raw materials of life far beyond the boundaries of the original nursery. The magnetic field is the final courier of the nebula's gifts, ensuring that the legacy of the shadow is shared with the rest of the universe. The arrival of the jets marks the moment where the darkness is finally conquered by the very light it works so hard to produce. It is a beautiful and poetic conclusion to the nebula's story, a sign that the long wait is finally over. The invisible conductor has finished its work, leaving behind a new star and a legacy of magnetic power that will continue to shape the galaxy for eons to come. The legacy of magnetic power and the silent work of the invisible conductor create a vibrant, hidden reality that remains completely beyond the grasp of our limited biological vision. While our eyes are beautifully adapted to perceive the surface of the world, they are utterly defeated by the thick, opaque curtains of the interstellar medium. To peer inside these lightless voids and witness the stars being born, modern astronomers must seamlessly switch their perspective to the realm of infrared and radio waves. This shift is not merely a change in equipment, but a fundamental expansion of our human senses into a realm where the dark is filled with light. This profound transformation of our perspective ensures that the darkness is never truly an end, but rather a starting point for a deeper understanding of the galaxy. We're no longer limited by the shadows cast by simple dust, but are instead invited to look through them into the radiant core of the interstellar medium. The infrared and radio universe is a place of endless activity, where the silence of the visible sky is replaced by the roar of hidden suns and the rhythmic dance of cold gas. It is the ultimate unveiling, a scientific revelation that turns the most mysterious places in the heavens into the most informative. Surprisingly, the universe offers a secret passage through the darkness by utilizing the specific physical properties of longer wavelengths of light. Infrared radiation possesses an elongated, more graceful physical structure that allows it to easily slip past the microscopic grains of silicate and carbon. While visible light is violently scattered and absorbed by the dust, these longer waves navigate the gaps in the cosmic fog with remarkable ease. This physical phenomenon effectively makes the solid wall of the nebula appear as a thin, transparent mist when viewed through specialized sensors. Because the individual dust grains are so incredibly small, they are simply unable to effectively intercept the larger, more expansive waves of infrared energy. This wavelength disparity means that the information from the core of the cloud can travel for trillions of miles without being significantly degraded or lost to the shadows. It is as if the universe has designed a specific frequency of light specifically meant for the observation of its most secretive and hidden processes. The longer the wavelength, the more effortlessly it passes through the dense material, providing a clear and undistorted view of the hidden landscape within. This elegant solution to the problem of cosmic opacity allows us to map the internal density and temperature of the cloud with unprecedented precision. We are no longer guessing at what lies beneath the surface, but are instead looking directly at the architectural foundations of the nebula. The physical ability of infrared light to bypass the dust is the key that unlocks the door to the stellar nursery, revealing a world of complexity and motion. It is a testament to the fact that the universe is never truly closed to those who know which frequency to listen for. If we were to look closer through these infrared eyes, a pitch-black nebula would suddenly and spectacularly glow with the intense heat of thousands of hidden stars. In this spectrum, the once impenetrable shadow becomes a brilliant, radiant tapestry of embryonic suns and glowing protostars that have never been seen by the human eye. The heat generated by the collapse of the prestellar cores is no longer an invisible secret, but is instead a vibrant and colourful announcement of a new solar system's birth. The darkness is replaced by a dazzling display of thermal energy, where the most active parts of the nebula glow with a fierce and unmistakable intensity. The intense radiation from these newborn suns, which is completely trapped by the dust in the visible spectrum, is here allowed to pour out and fill our senses with data. Every flickering protostar and every spinning disk of gas is revealed in stunning detail, showing us the exact moment when the darkness begins to yield to the light. It is a breathtaking transformation of a once empty void into a place of intense, crowded, and violent energetic activity. The infrared view turns the nebula into a lighthouse in the dark, signaling the arrival of a new generation of stars to the rest of the galaxy. Hidden within these thermal signatures are the clues to the star's eventual mass, temperature and lifespan, all of which are encoded in the specific frequencies of heat it emits. By observing this infrared glow, we can track the evolution of the star from a cold, shapeless core into a mature and radiant nuclear engine. The nebula is no longer a wall that blocks our view, but is instead a vibrant and glowing laboratory where the fire of the stars is first ignited. It is a vision of the universe that is as beautiful as it is technically profound, showing us the radiant heart of the shadow. Deep within the lightless corridors where even the heat of a star is faint, radio telescopes tune specifically into the exact frequencies emitted by cold carbon monoxide gas moving in the dark. This specific molecule, a common and reliable resident of the dark nebula, possesses a unique rotational signature that is perfectly suited for long-distance communication through the interstellar void. By listening to the subtle rhythmic hum of these rotating molecules, astronomers can map the movement and the speed of the gas as it flows toward the center of the cloud. It is a way to hear the heartbeat of the nebula, a sonic map of the invisible currents that drive the star-forming process. This radio tuning allows us to observe the cloud in its most primitive and coldest state, long before the first hint of infrared heat begins to stir. The carbon monoxide acts as a faithful messenger, carrying information about the density and the turbulence of the gas across thousands of light years. It is a steady and reliable signal that persists even in the most absolute darkness, providing a constant stream of data about the internal health of the molecular cloud. The radio universe is a place of quiet, persistent vibration, where the very atoms of the nebula tell the story of their own gravitational destiny. By analysing the specific shifts in these radio frequencies, we can determine exactly how fast the gas is falling inward and how much mass is being gathered at the centre. This information is critical for understanding why some nebulae produce massive stars while others produce only small, stable suns like our own. The carbon monoxide signal is the primary diagnostic tool for the early stages of creation, offering a window into the mechanics of the nebula that is entirely independent of light or heat. It is a technological triumph that turns the silence of the void into a wealth of scientific discovery. This structure of the nebula is further revealed as sub-millimeter observatories expertly capture the extremely faint, lingering thermal glow of the cold dust itself. While the stars within the cloud provide the infrared brilliance, the dust grains themselves possess a subtle low-energy radiation that is a direct reflection of their own internal temperature. This dust emission is incredibly faint, existing on the very edge of our ability to detect radiation, but it provides the most accurate map of the nebula's overall mass and structure. It is a way to see the material of the cloud directly, not just by what it blocks, but by what it slowly and quietly radiates into the void. Sub-millimeter observations allow us to see the cold, outer shell of the nebula in a way that is simply impossible with any other frequency. It reveals the large-scale distribution of matter, showing us the filaments and the lanes that connect the different star-forming regions into a single, cohesive network. This faint thermal glow is the ultimate evidence of the nebula's physical existence, a lingering heat that has survived for millions of years in the deep freeze of space. It is the final, most detailed layer of our understanding, showing us the raw, cold materials that will one day become the foundation of a new world. The precision of these observations allows us to calculate the exact ratio of gas to dust, a critical piece of information for understanding the overall chemical and structural evolution of the galaxy. We're no longer looking at the shadow as an abstract concept, but are instead measuring its weight and its volume with the accuracy of a laboratory experiment. The sub-millimeter universe is a realm of profound and quiet revelation, where the coldest matter in the heavens is finally allowed to speak for itself. It is a testament to the sensitivity of our modern instruments, which can find the heat of a shadow in the freezing dark of the abyss. The James Webb Space Telescope heavily utilizes its advanced and incredibly sensitive infrared sensors to pierce through the thickest, most unyielding layers of cosmic dust. This monumental achievement of human engineering was specifically designed to tackle the problem of the dark nebula, providing us with the highest resolution and most detailed view of the stellar nurseries ever obtained. By positioning itself far beyond the interference of the Earth's atmosphere, this observatory can capture the most subtle and distant infrared signals, revealing the very first moments of a star's birth in absolute clarity. It is the ultimate tool for the exploration of the shadow, a technological marvel that has redefined our entire understanding of the star-forming process. This advanced telescope can distinguish individual protostars and their surrounding disks within the most crowded and chaotic parts of the nebula, showing us the fine details of planetary formation as it happens. It provides a level of detail that was once thought to be physically impossible, turning the distant and blurry shadows into sharp, high-definition landscapes of creation. The James Webb Space Telescope is the primary lens through which we now view the infrared universe, a way to witness the majesty of the nebula with a clarity that is almost overwhelming. Its sensors are so sensitive that they can detect the heat of a single, cold planet forming deep within the thickest part of the dust cocoon. The data provided by this observatory has allowed us to see the internal structure of the clouds in 3 dimensions, mapping the distribution of gas and dust with incredible accuracy. We're no longer limited to a flat 2-dimensional silhouette, but are instead exploring the deep, voluminous interiors of the cosmic nurseries. The James Webb Space Telescope is the fulfillment of a decades-long dream, a way to finally conquer the darkness and see the radiant future that has always been hidden within it. It is the champion of the infrared, a testament to our enduring curiosity and our refusal to let the shadows define our limits. These long wavelength observations instantly reveal the complex filamentous structural web that has always been hidden inside the cloud's seemingly featureless dark. When viewed through the lens of infrared and radio waves, the nebula is no longer a simple, shapeless blob, but is instead revealed as a highly organized network of thin, twisting threads. These filaments act as the primary highways for the gas, funneling matter from the outer edges of the cloud toward the dense centers where the stars will eventually form. It is a structural revelation that shows us the underlying order of the interstellar medium, a web of force and matter that spans the entire volume of the nebula. These structural threads are also the primary locations where the most intense and active star formation takes place, as the density of the gas is highest at the points where the filaments intersect. By mapping this web, we can predict exactly where the next stars will be born and how the nebula will eventually dissolve. It is a guide to the future of the galaxy, a way to see the organization and the intent that lies beneath the surface of the dark. The structural web is the ultimate proof that the nebula is a highly evolved and sophisticated entity, a masterpiece of cosmic engineering that is revealed only in the light of the long wavelengths. Notice how your body settles comfortably into a state of total stillness, a physical anchor that mirrors the immense gravitational stability of the clouds we're observing. In the narrow view of visible light, these regions often look like lonely abandoned voids where the very light of the galaxy has gone out. However, when the view is shifted to the infrared, the scene is instantly transformed into a bustling, brightly lit metropolis teeming with activity. Hundreds of newly born suns and thousands of glowing protostars suddenly populate the darkness, revealing that the nebula is actually one of the most crowded and energetic places in the entire Milky Way. The void is revealed as a highly populated neighborhood, where the density of stars is far higher than it is in the surrounding, more transparent parts of the spiral arms. This shift in perspective is as dramatic as turning on the lights in a dark room, suddenly revealing a world of complexity and life that was always there, just beyond our reach. The nebula is the primary engine of the galaxy's growth, a place of constant renewal and energetic transformation that is hidden from our eyes by a simple layer of dust. It is a humbling realization that the most empty places in the sky are actually the most full, packed with the potential for millions of new worlds. This bustling metropolis is a sign of the incredible productivity of the dark, a proof that the universe is never truly dormant or inactive. Every glowing point of infrared light is a star in the making, a sign that the cycle of life and death in the galaxy is continuing with absolute and unwavering precision. The metropolis in the dark is the true heart of the Milky Way, the place where the future is being manufactured in bulk. It is a vision of the universe that is full of hope and radiant energy, showing us that the shadows are the most fertile and active parts of the heavens. By mapping the radio emissions from the carbon monoxide gas, scientists can easily and accurately measure the precise mass and density of the invisible gas throughout the entire nebula. This calculation is a fundamental part of our understanding of the cloud, as it tells us exactly how much raw material is available for the creation of new star systems. Because the radio waves are not blocked by the dust, they provide a complete and undistorted view of the entire volume of the cloud, allowing us to weigh the shadow with a level of precision that is truly staggering. We are no longer guessing at the cloud's importance, but are instead measuring its physical presence in trillions of tons of cold, molecular gas. This mass measurement allows us to determine the gravitational potential of the nebula, predicting how quickly it will collapse and how many stars it will eventually produce. It is a way to quantify the potential of the darkness, turning the abstract mystery of the shadow into a set of concrete physical numbers. The density maps reveal the exact locations of the prestellar cores, showing us the specific points where the gravity has already begun its final, irresistible work. By measuring the gas, we're measuring the very substance of the future, a way to see the raw ingredients of 1,000 new suns before they ever ignite. The precise mass and density also tell us about the overall history of the region, revealing how much gas has already been converted into stars and how much remains to be processed. It is a cosmic inventory, a way to track the wealth of the galaxy as it moves through the cycle of stellar birth and death. The radio emissions are the primary tool for this physical accounting, a way to see the weight of the universe in a spectrum that is entirely invisible to our eyes. It is a scientific triumph that turns the most ephemeral and ghostly structures in the heavens into the most measurable and concrete. This technological shift in perspective completely and permanently transforms dark nebulae from impenetrable, obscuring walls into beautiful transparent windows. We're no longer looking at the shadow as an obstacle or a dead end, but are instead using it as a specialized lens through which to observe the most intimate details of cosmic creation. This change in our mental model is the ultimate goal of astronomy, a way to turn the unknown into the understood by simply changing the frequency of our interrogation. The dark nebula is revealed as a masterpiece of transition, a place where the rules of the old stars are rewritten to create the new. By embracing the infrared and radio universe, we have turned the most secretive places in the heavens into the most informative, revealing the radiant heart that has always beat within the dark. The wall has become a window, offering us a clear and undistorted view of the mechanics of the galaxy and the origin story of our own solar system. This transparency is a gift of our modern technology, a way to finally and fully participate in the grand, luminous history of the cosmos. The darkness is no longer a barrier, but is instead an invitation to look deeper, to see more, and to understand the profound and beautiful unity of the shadow and the light. This final perspective shift ensures that we will never again look at the night sky in the same way, as we now know that every dark patch is a place of incredible potential and radiant life. We have conquered the shadows by simply learning to see them for what they truly are, the fertile protected soil from which the stars themselves are grown. The transparent window is the ultimate achievement of our curiosity, a way to witness the majesty of the nebula with eyes that are no longer limited by the day. It is the poetic conclusion to our exploration of the spectrum, a sign that the long wait to see through the dark is finally and gloriously over. The glorious clarity of our new infrared vision reveals that the dark nebula is not a static sanctuary. but a physical territory that is constantly battered and bruised by the intense, punishing radiation of nearby massive stars. These luminous giants emit a relentless torrent of high-energy photons that strike the outer surface of the dark cloud with the force of a tidal wave. This bombardment causes the molecular bonds of the dust to vibrate and eventually break, peeling away the protective skin of the nursery in a process of invisible, thermal attrition. The outer layers of the cloud bear the physical scars of this interaction, often appearing ragged and frayed where the radiation has successfully penetrated. Because the dust is so effective at absorbing energy, it takes the full brunt of the stellar assault, shielding the sensitive inner cores at the cost of its own structural integrity. This eternal conflict between the searing light of established suns and the cold, unyielding shadow of the nebula defines the visual geography of the entire interstellar medium. As the radiation continues its work, it creates vast, hollowed-out regions on the perimeter of the cloud that look like shallow, glowing impact craters on a cosmic scale. These zones of erosion are the front lines of the galaxy's energy balance, where the raw power of nuclear fusion meets the passive resistance of the deep dark. It is a slow, agonizing transformation that ensures the cloud is never truly at rest, even as it prepares for its own eventual collapse. Beyond the invisible pressure of light, stellar winds aggressively act like cosmic sandblasters, systematically eroding the fragile and exposed outer edges of the dark clouds. These winds are composed of massive streams of charged particles travelling at millions of miles per hour, ejected from the boiling atmospheres of neighbouring O-type and B-type stars. When this high-speed matter slams into the cold, stationary dust of the nebula, it physically strips away the material, molecule by molecule in a relentless display of kinetic force. This mechanical erosion carves deep, winding canyons into the face of the shadow, creating the jagged and complex textures we often admire in deep space photography. The dust is literally blown back into the surrounding interstellar void, creating a localized thinning of the cloud that allows more radiation to penetrate even deeper into the structure. It is a feedback loop of destruction, where the very act of revealing the nebula's secrets also contributes to its ultimate dissolution. If we were to look closer, we would see that this cosmic sandblasting is responsible for the sharp, well-defined boundaries that often separate the dark dust from the glowing gas. The winds act as a cosmic sculptor's chisel, refining the shape of the cloud by removing the softer and less dense regions. This constant state of bombardment ensures that the dark nebula is a dynamic and shifting entity, forever responding to the violent weather of the surrounding galaxy. Surprisingly, many of the most famous and beautiful structures in the night sky, including the iconic pillars of creation, are actually just dark nebula remnants stubbornly resisting this fierce erosion. These towering columns of gas and dust are essentially the last standing survivors of a once massive molecular cloud that has been almost entirely destroyed by nearby star clusters. The dense, light-blocking material at the tips of the pillars acts like an umbrella, protecting the gas directly behind it from the relentless pressure of stellar winds. Because these heads of the pillars are so incredibly compact, they can withstand the radiation and particle flow for millions of years longer than the surrounding, more diffuse material. This creates the long, finger-like projections that seem to reach out toward the very stars that are slowly but surely destroying them. It is a visual testament to the resilience of the deep dark, a frozen moment in a much larger story of cosmic decay and transformation. Notice the steady, reliable support of the chair or bed beneath you, a grounding presence that stands in quiet contrast to the violent erosion occurring trillions of miles away. These pillars are the ruins of a celestial cathedral, beautiful in their destruction and profound in their eventual disappearance. They remind us that even the most massive structures in the universe are subject to the sculpting power of time and the relentless movement of energy. Shock waves from distant supernova explosions loudly and violently send ripples through the interstellar medium, compressing the dark gas of the nebula and triggering violent new waves of star formation. When a massive star reaches the end of its life and detonates, it releases a staggering amount of energy that travels across the galaxy as a supersonic wall of pressure. As this shockwave encounters a dark nebula, it slams into the cold material, forcing it to pack together with a density that would be impossible under normal conditions. This sudden and intense compression can jumpstart the gravitational collapse of a prestellar core, forcing it to reach the critical threshold for star birth in a fraction of its usual time. The explosion of one star thus becomes the primary catalyst for the creation of hundreds of others, linking the death of the old to the birth of the new in a cycle of high-energy inheritance. It is a magnificent display of cosmic recycling, where the violent end of a stellar giant provides the mechanical push required to ignite a new generation of light. These shockwaves act like a sudden, heavy blow to the dark cloud, shattering its internal equilibrium and forcing it into a state of rapid contraction. The resulting stars are often formed in dense, crowded clusters, born from the same sudden pressure event that rippled through the dust. It is a reminder that the dark nebula is not just a passive observer of the galaxy's violence, but is an active participant that can be transformed and revitalized by the energy of the dying stars. The outer boundaries of these clouds often glow with a faint ghostly luminescence, where ambient starlight from the surrounding galaxy strikes the thick layers of dust. This subtle glowing rim is the result of starlight being scattered by the very first layers of the cloud, creating a halo of light that perfectly outlines the shape of the dark silhouette. It is a beautiful and haunting effect that allows us to see the physical extent of the nebula even when the interior remains completely lightless and opaque. This luminescence serves as the skin of the shadow, a thin interface where the energetic reality of the galaxy meets the profound stillness of the molecular interior. The colour and intensity of this glow can tell astronomers a great deal about the size and the chemical composition of the dust grains located on the perimeter. It is a way for the nebula to communicate its presence to the wider universe, a faint and steady signal that marks the boundary of the sanctuary. Unlike the brilliant emission nebulae that dominate the sky, this ghostly rim is a quiet and unassuming light, requiring specialized sensors to fully appreciate its delicate beauty. It represents the first point of contact between the light and the dark, a zone of optical compromise where the energy of the stars is gently reflected back into the void. This boundary glow is the ultimate frame for the shadow, highlighting the majestic architecture of the cloud against the background tapestry of the Milky Way. Intense radiation pressure from massive nearby suns can completely and violently blow away smaller dark clouds before any new stars ever have the time to form within them. This process, known as photoevaporation, occurs when the high-energy ultraviolet light from a star cluster becomes so powerful that it literally boils away the gas and dust of a neighbouring nebula. For smaller, less massive clouds, the inward pull of gravity is simply not strong enough to resist this outward thermal assault, leading to a total and permanent dispersal of the nursery. It is a race against time, where the cloud must collapse and form its own internal stars quickly enough to generate its own protective winds before the external radiation destroys it. If the nearby massive stars are too energetic or too close, the dark nebula never stands a chance, eventually vanishing into the general, featureless background of the interstellar medium. This destruction ensures that only the most resilient and dense clouds survive to become the birthplaces of the next stellar generation. Deep within your own quiet space, let the rhythmic movement of your breathing provide a sense of internal stability that mirrors the resilience of the most enduring cosmic structures. This process of photoevaporation is one of the primary ways the galaxy regulates its own star formation rate, by clearing out the less efficient and more vulnerable reservoirs of raw material. It is a ruthless but necessary part of the galactic ecosystem, ensuring that only the most viable seeds are allowed to grow into the stars of the future. The intricate wispy tails often seen on the trailing edges of dark clouds are dramatically carved and stretched by the harsh, moving environment of the surrounding galactic arms. As a dark nebula moves through the interstellar medium, it encounters different densities of gas and varying strengths of stellar winds that act as a persistent aerodynamic drag. This pressure forces the lighter and less dense material to trail behind the main body of the cloud, creating long, flowing structures that resemble the tails of celestial comets. These cometary globules are a direct visual record of the nebula's journey through space, showing us the direction and the intensity of the forces that have been acting upon it for millions of years. The tails are composed of the finest dust and gas, the material that is most easily influenced by the external galactic weather. They provide a sense of motion and fluidity to the otherwise heavy and static silhouette, turning the dark cloud into a dynamic traveller of the spiral arms. This structure of wispy filaments is often the most beautiful part of a dark nebula, offering a delicate and intricate contrast to the solid opacity of the central core. It is a reminder that the nebula is not an island, but is deeply and physically connected to the larger movements of the Milky Way. The tails are the shadow's way of responding to the wind, a graceful and enduring adaptation to the violent currents of deep space. Massive stars, in a startling and inevitable display of cosmic irony, will eventually destroy the very same dark nebulae that originally provided their birthplaces and early protection. Once a new star reaches a state of stability and ignites its internal nuclear furnace, it begins to emit the very radiation and winds that once sculpted the nursery from the outside. From within the heart of the cloud, the new sun begins to push back against the surrounding gas and dust, carving out a vast, glowing cavern that grows larger with every passing millennium. This internal erosion eventually reaches the outer surface of the nebula, causing it to shatter and dissolve from within, exposing the new star cluster to the wider galaxy for the first time. The darkness that once served as a womb is now perceived as an obstacle to be cleared, as the star's energy is no longer compatible with the cold, static environment of the dust. It is a fundamental transition in the life of a solar system, where the protector is sacrificed to allow the child to finally and fully shine. Ultimately, every brilliant star we see in the night sky is a survivor of its own nursery's destruction, a radiant monument to the material that was lost so that light could exist. This cycle of birth and demolition is the primary engine of galactic evolution, ensuring that the matter of the universe is constantly being repurposed and transformed. The disappearance of the nebula is not a failure, but is the final and successful fulfillment of its ancient creative purpose. This constant rhythmic cycle of destruction and compression makes dark nebulae some of the absolute most dynamic and rapidly changing physical structures in all of deep space. While a single star may live for billions of years, a dark nebula is a relatively fleeting phenomenon, persisting for only a few tens of millions of years before it is either transformed into stars or dispersed by the wind. They are the grand, shifting weather systems of the galaxy, moving and morphing in response to the massive energetic events occurring all around them. This dynamism ensures that the interstellar medium is never in a state of permanent stasis, but is instead a boiling and churning sea of potential and change. The dark nebula is the primary site of this activity, acting as the critical interface where the diffuse gas of the galaxy is concentrated into the solid reality of worlds. Every movement of the dust and every shift in the shadow is a sign that the universe is actively engaged in the work of creation and renewal. Similarly, the changing shapes of the clouds remind us that the heavens are not a static or unchanging vault, but are a living and breathing system of energy and matter. The dark nebula is the most visible sign of this life, a massive and shadowy indicator of the grand silent processes that govern the fate of the entire Milky Way. By studying these shifts, we gain a deeper appreciation for the patient and relentless pace of cosmic evolution, a journey that is measured in eons rather than years. The violent sculptural forces of the entire galaxy, from the roar of supernovas to the steady pressure of radiation, practically ensure that no two dark nebulae will ever look exactly alike. Each individual cloud is the unique product of its own specific location in space and the specific combination of forces that have acted upon it since its formation. Some are stretched into long, thin filaments by magnetic tension, while others are carved into sharp, towering pillars by the winds of a neighbouring star cluster. This infinite variety of forms makes the study of dark nebulae an endless journey of discovery, where every new shadow reveals a different architectural masterpiece of nature. They are the fingerprints of the galaxy, unique and unrepeatable structures that tell the story of the local environment in absolute lightless detail. The lack of uniformity is a sign of the universe's incredible complexity and its ability to create endless beauty from the simplest materials of dust and gas. Ultimately, as you conclude this stage of your journey and feel the complete, total relaxation of your resting physical body, realize that the diversity of the shadows is a direct reflection of the diversity of life itself. The same forces that sculpt the dark nebula also created the chemical building blocks that now reside within your own cells. We are part of this grand, sculptural tradition, a radiant outcome of the ancient and ongoing battle between the wind and the dust, the shadow and the light. This ongoing battle between the shadow and the light reaches its most poignant resolution when we realize that the physical existence of a dark nebula is merely a fleeting temporary phase in the long life of a galaxy. While these monumental structures appear to be eternal, immovable anchors of the deep night, they are actually ephemeral whispers when measured against the multi-billion-year lifespan of the Milky Way itself. They occupy a narrow, critical window of time, serving as a transitional state between the diffuse, wandering gas of the interstellar medium and the concentrated, burning fire of a new stellar population. If we were to observe the galaxy over hundreds of millions of years, these dark silhouettes would appear to blink in and out of existence like shadows cast by passing clouds on a windy afternoon. They are the restless, shifting weather systems of the spiral arms, constantly forming from the wreckage of the old and dissolving into the brilliance of the new. This inherent impermanence is what makes their current presence so precious, representing a brief and necessary pause in the frantic mechanical energy of galactic rotation. They are the quiet, temporary resting places where matter gathers its strength before the final, irreversible leap into luminosity. Within the staggering timescales of the cosmos, a dark nebula is granted only a relatively brief window of tens of millions of years before its ultimate destiny is forcefully decided by the surrounding environment. During this era, the cloud exists in a state of high-stakes equilibrium, perpetually caught between the patient, inward draw of its own gravity and the violent outward shredding of external stellar winds. It is a slow-motion countdown toward a final resolution that will either result in the glorious birth of a star cluster or the total dissipation of the cloud back into the void. This deadline is dictated by the massive stars nearby, whose radiation acts as a relentless clock, eating away at the edges of the shadow until the core is either protected by new light or entirely exposed. As you drift further into a state of total physical relaxation, consider the immense, unhurried patience of a structure that defines its life by the passing of 10 million terrestrial years. The eventual end of the nebula is not an abrupt tragedy, but a majestic and inevitable transition into a different state of physical being. Whether it collapses inward to ignite a new sun, or is torn apart by the winds of its neighbours, the cloud's identity as a shadow is always a finite and destined journey. This temporal limit ensures that the galaxy remains a place of constant motion and renewal, never allowing the darkness to become a permanent or stagnant feature of the heavens. Surprisingly, the scattered dark material that remains after the nebula's dissolution is not lost to the universe, but is instead continuously recycled back into the interstellar medium to form brand new clouds later. The heavy grains of dust and the complex molecular gases are swept up by the currents of the galactic disk, mingling with the diffuse trails of long-dead stars and the debris of ancient supernova explosions. This material travels across the vast gulfs of space for eons, eventually cooling and gathering again in a new location to begin the cycle of shadow once more. It is a grand and eternal process of cosmic reincarnation, where the physical substance of one dark nursery becomes the foundation for another millions of light years away. This recycling ensures that the galaxy never truly exhausts its reservoir of potential, constantly repurposing the same atoms to create different configurations of darkness and light. Every grain of silicate and every molecule of carbon monoxide has likely been part of a dozen different nebulae over the course of the galaxy's history. These travelers carry the chemical memory of previous stellar generations, enriched by the elements forged in the hearts of stars that have long since vanished from the sky. The shadow you see tonight is a composite of 1 billion years of galactic history, waiting to be disassembled and woven into a new tapestry in a distant future. As the heavy, protective shroud of the dark nebula finally and slowly dissipates, it reveals the sparkling open star cluster it has been hiding in its frozen heart for countless eons. This moment of unveiling is the ultimate visual climax of the cloud's long life, as the opaque curtain of dust is pulled back to show a brilliant, jewel-like congregation of newly born blue suns. These stars, which have spent their entire embryonic development in total isolation, are suddenly introduced to the wider galaxy, their light finally allowed to travel across the universe without obstruction. It is a transition from a state of profound, lightless secrecy to a display of radiant and unashamed glory. The once black void is replaced by a dazzling field of stellar diamonds, each one a successful graduate of the cold, dark school of the molecular nursery. This unveiling marks the point where the nebula's physical labour is complete, and its role as a protector is no longer required by the mature and stable suns it has produced. The surrounding space, once filled with the suffocating silence of the dust, now hums with the energetic radiation and magnetic pulses of a thriving stellar neighbourhood. It is a breathtaking transformation that proves the darkness was never an empty end, but a highly effective and necessary disguise for the beauty waiting within. The very act of creating this brilliant starlight is what ultimately and undeniably ensures the total destruction of the dark cloud itself. Once the internal suns begin to burn with the fury of nuclear fusion, they generate an outward pressure of radiation and winds that the surrounding dust simply cannot withstand. The light acts as a solvent, dissolving the shadow from the inside out and clearing away the material that was once its most intimate and faithful guardian. It is a profound cosmic irony that the shadow's greatest success, the birth of a star, is also the primary cause of its own physical erasure. This process of self-sacrifice is the fundamental price of stellar birth, a trade-off where the stillness of the dark is exchanged for the energetic vibrance of the light. The nebula essentially consumes its own identity to provide the raw materials and the protection required for the next generation of solar power. As the dust is pushed back and the gas is ionized, the structure of the shadow loses its cohesion and fades into the general background of the spiral arm. The light does not just conquer the dark, it uses the dark as the very fuel for its own eventual and glorious victory. Paradoxically, these absolute darkest and most lightless places in the entire universe are the only physical locations where new light can be successfully and safely born. The profound opacity and the bone-chilling cold that we perceive as an absence of life are, in fact, the most fertile and creative environments in the entire galactic disk. Without the heavy armour of the dust and the thermal isolation of the molecular gas, the delicate process of starbirth would be impossible, as the ambient heat of the galaxy would prevent the necessary gravitational focus. The shadow is the midwife of the sun, providing the quiet and the stillness required for the universe to reinvent itself. This realization turns our typical human understanding of darkness on its head, revealing the shadow as an active and vital participant in the creation of brilliance. We often look at the black patches in the sky and see them as voids, but they are actually the most densely packed and potential-rich regions of our home galaxy. The light we see in the stars is merely the final, visible outcome of a much longer and more mysterious journey that took place in the deep, unyielding blackness. The absolute darkness is the essential canvas upon which the entire luminous history of the cosmos is painted, one flickering protostar at a time. Future generations of stars and the planetary systems that orbit them will eagerly inherit the heavy elements manufactured and protected within the dust of these ancient shadows. The complex carbon chains and the icy mantles of the nebula's interior provide the raw materials for everything from the iron in a planet's core to the organic chemistry that might eventually lead to life. As a dark cloud dissolves, it scatters these enriched materials into the path of new star-forming regions, ensuring that each subsequent generation of the galaxy is more chemically sophisticated than the last. This inheritance is the true legacy of the shadow, a material gift that persists long after the cloud itself has vanished into the interstellar void. Take a moment to notice the quiet, steady rhythm of your own pulse, a biological machine built from the very atoms that were once frozen within just such a lightless cosmic laboratory. We are the direct material descendants of these ancient self-sacrificing shadows, carrying the chemical fingerprints of the dark nebula within our own cells and bones. The history of the Earth and every living thing upon it began in the absolute lightless freeze of a molecular core, billions of years before the sun ever cleared its nursery. The shadow is our ancestor, a silent and distant guardian that provided the building blocks for every dream we have ever had beneath the light of the stars. If we were to look at a sprawling galaxy that was fundamentally devoid of dark nebulae, we would be looking at a completely dead and stagnant galaxy, entirely incapable of creating anything new. Such a universe would be filled only with aging, cooling stars, with no hidden nurseries to replenish the stellar population as the old suns eventually fade and die. The presence of these dark, obscuring clouds is the primary indicator of a galaxy's vitality, a sign that the interstellar medium is still active, fertile, and engaged in the work of creation. A clear, shadowless sky would be a beautiful but tragic sight, representing a cosmic landscape that has run out of the potential to reinvent its own light. The shadows are the signs of a living cosmos, the dark pulses of a system that is still growing and evolving through the eons. They represent the untapped energy of the spiral arms, the reservoirs of matter that ensure the night sky will never truly go out as long as the galaxy has the strength to gather its dust. Without the dark nebula, the story of the universe would be a short, linear path toward a permanent and lonely dimness. Instead, the presence of the shadow ensures that the story is a cycle, an endless loop of birth, death, and spectacular, lightless transformation. This silent, dark expanse is ultimately a beautiful and haunting testament to the immense potential energy waiting patiently to be unleashed by the laws of physics. Every molecule of gas and every grain of dust within the nebula is a spring that has been wound tight by the history of the galaxy, holding a massive amount of gravitational power in a state of quiet and stable suspension. This energy is the currency of the future, a wealth of motion and heat that is currently locked away behind a wall of absolute freezing silence. The nebula is a warehouse of possibilities, a place where the universe stores its greatest treasures in the coldest and most secure vaults imaginable. To look at the dark nebula is to witness the peak of cosmic anticipation, a moment of profound stillness just before the most violent and energetic transition possible in the natural world. It is the silence before the roar of nuclear fusion, the deep shadows before the first brilliant ray of a new dawn. This potential energy is the true essence of the shadow, a promise of light that is held with a steady and uncompromising hand for millions of years. As you settle into your own state of profound stillness, feel the resonance of this potential, the quiet power that resides in the most peaceful and unmoving parts of the existence we share. Ultimately, looking at a dark nebula is fundamentally looking at the fertile, unploughed soil of the cosmos just before the arrival of the spring bloom. We are witnessing the galactic garden in its most primitive and essential state, during the long, cold winter where the seeds are protected and the ground is prepared for the coming light. The dust is the soil, and the molecular gas is the air, and the gravity is the patient gardener that pulls it all together into a unified and creative force. This botanical metaphor is the most accurate way to understand the role of the shadow in the larger life of the Milky Way. The bloom is the sudden and spectacular emergence of a new star cluster, but the work of the winter is what makes that beauty possible. We should never look at the dark nebula as a place of death or emptiness, but as a site of the most intense and focused biological preparation occurring on an astronomical scale. It is the time of the seed, the era of the shadow, and the necessary prelude to every bright and burning thing in the universe. By embracing the stillness of the soil, we gain a deeper and more profound appreciation for the eventual and glorious brilliance of the flower. The absolute darkness of a nebula is not an empty void of nothingness, but the profound, quiet shadow where the universe patiently weaves the very fabric of future light. The absolute darkness of a nebula is not an empty void of nothingness, but the profound, quiet shadow where the universe patiently weaves the very fabric of future light. Deep within the stillness of your own room, the journey of the shadows now settles into the fibres of your being. Your toes begin to lose their tension, sinking as if into a soft, cooling layer of ancient rest. The arches of your feet and the weight of your heels surrender completely to the surface beneath you. This heavy, comfortable relaxation travels slowly up through your calves and into your knees. Every muscle in your lower legs feels as though it is being dissolved into a state of perfect, unmoving equilibrium. Your thighs and hips now accept the full, anchoring pull of gravity, mirroring the immense stability of a core of matter at rest. Your arms feel heavy and long, resting like silent anchors that have finally found their place of rest. The palms of your hands and each individual finger soften into the texture of the sheets. This quiet room is a container of absolute safety, holding the gentle weight of your neck as it rests against the pillow. Surprisingly, the muscles of your jaw let go completely, allowing your mouth to soften into a state of deep, wordless peace. The skin across your forehead and around your eyes becomes smooth and cool in the dimness of this sanctuary. If we were to look closer, we would see only the steady, effortless evidence of a body that has finally reached its destination. The air in the room is still and cool, moving in and out of your lungs with a natural, unforced simplicity. Every breath is a tether to this moment of complete, heavy comfort on the mattress. The blanket is a weightless, warm boundary between you and the world outside the door. Sleep is no longer a distance to be travelled, but a soft, yielding floor that you are already beginning to sink into. This soft stillness is your own, a private and healing place where the only requirement is the slow, steady rhythm of your rest. The day has folded away, leaving only the soft texture of the fabric and the deep, silent pull of the night. The pillow cradles the back of your head, supporting every thought as it dissolves into a dreamless, heavy stillness. You're completely safe and entirely ready to vanish into the deep, healing waters of rest. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.